Testing. Hello, hello, testing. Can you guys hear me now? Testing.
Yeah, I think
Unwithered, say
so.
something.
Hey, I'm here. Am I muted still? What's going on?
We can hear you now. 1414. There you go. Okay. It's all fixed. All good. That's why I always want to do a test first. Okay, so hello, all 71 of you watching right now. This
Let's
is
go.
a brief, calm discussion. This is episode 6, I think. This is the series where we don't have a debate. We don't try to do gotcha questions. This is more like an interview where I talk to someone about a theory that they believe in that is contested. So what we did last week with Fazbear Entertainment, the YouTuber, not the company, was discuss Charlie87, which is the idea that Charlie was the final kill, or the sixth kill, I guess, in the year 1987. And so now this week is the opposite perspective. I'm going to be talking to the Unwithered Truth about Charlie83, which is the idea that Charlie was killed before the MCI. So,
Mhm.
before we start, oh, Fazent's here. What's up? All right, so before we start, I want to ask you, Unwithered, when did you first get into Five Nights at Freddy's?
So I got into Five Nights at Freddy's back in the beginning. Like, the first game came out, and I believe I just saw somebody playing it on YouTube. And then at the time, I actually had a long lost YouTube channel. So I actually, played the game, did Let's Plays, my little, what was I at that time? 13, my 13-year-old self, just, getting jump scared and all that. Um, so I got back way back in the day, straight into it and was instantly in love with all the theorizing and stuff like that. It was fun. Actually, I found a document recently, which was I had at the time written a theory video. It was terribly written, but I had like come up with this idea, and I think it was around the time FNAF 3 came out, and it was my like completed timeline from FNAF 1 to 3. And looking back on it now, I was like, actually, there's a lot of stuff in that still makes sense, but I
What
was really
year?
set on
What year did you put
that
FNAF 3? That's
was
the question.
oh, I don't even think I had a year. I don't think I even bothered. I just because I that's the funny thing because people say like oh FNAF 3 was confirmed to be 2023 because Scott said we got everything right about it. But I don't even remember the year being a discussion at the time. It was just like 30 years later. It didn't seem to be that like big of a thing. Like, oh my God, it's set in the year 2023. At least I don't remember it being one. But yeah, in that timeline, I didn't really focus on dates as much as I did, the overarching story and what the mini games all meant. So, like, I was really set on the idea that there was a pink guy and a purple guy. I don't
Yes.
know why. I was really set on that idea. So that theory was very much built around that, but it was really fun looking back and reading it and going, "Oh my God, this was in the cards. If only I could tell that kid what was going to happen in the future."
Yeah, when I, my first year or so of YouTube was also doing Let's Plays, and we were playing just
Mhm.
random stuff. We played a game called Gone Home that no one remembers. We played through Bioshock, even though it was like 6 years old at that point, and none of these
Mhm.
videos got more than 10 views. But the Five Nights at
Yeah.
Freddy's one got like 300, and if I had realized then, hey, FNAF content gets a lot of views, I could have started this whole thing 5 years early.
You've been way ahead of the curve.
Yep.
It's funny you said Gone Home. I actually think I did play that at the time. I vaguely remember this looking at screenshots of it.
Yeah, it was like
That was a cool game.
a rainy house, and it's like a very
Yeah.
spooky atmosphere, and it's called a walking simulator. I thought it was a very good game for what it was. Very scary when I played it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
funny. Yeah, I did all sorts of stuff. I did Minecraft, I did Battlefront, I did
of
all sorts
course.
of stuff.
So that was your sort of introduction to FNAF. You were here since the beginning. You were a teenager at the time. What made you start creating FNAF content as an adult? And would you call your channel more like a theorizing channel or a discussion channel or a lore channel? Like what category?
So so I suppose I'll do the category thing first. When I started, I would have called it a theory channel. It would have been just going through what I thought was going on in each of the games. I started out with my kind of crackpot with a week before theory about the whole thing confirming that FNAF 1 was in 89. Don't even think I necessarily believe that anymore, but it was something that I thought was like basically it's funny they're in the chat now. Dual process theory did their great video on their launchpad video
Yeah.
on Golden Freddy and Cassidy and all this stuff. And having seen that, I when the week before came out, a while later, I remember thinking, man, they had a really crackpot theory in terms of people accepting it or going against the grain. And I was like, it really worked out for them. I have done video editing since I was younger, and I went to film school and stuff. So I was like, I could probably make a video essay on my weird idea about the week before. So why don't I go ahead and do it? Why don't I try it out? So that was the initial like inspiration. But funnily enough as well, around that same time was when I just started getting back into FNAF in general. And I think it was your 8-hour FNAF video. And then I also discovered T-Dreads around the same time. And then dual process theories, all that was kind of coming out around that same time. And then it was only a few months later that I made my first video, which is now nearly a year. It's nearly a year since then, because it'll be October will be my channel anniversary, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome. 100K in less than a year. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm delighted with that. I'm very, very happy. And thank you all to everybody who has supported me and helped me along.
And if anyone here is sub to me but not to Unwithered, what are you doing? He actually makes good content. His FNAF
Maybe anytime your
content.
new videos come out.
What?
I watch them instantly.
Yeah, you do. Most people don't. You put listen. My editing is moving a PNG around sometimes, and occasionally if I'm feeling fancy, I might put like a bubble pop sound effect as a transition. You have totally 3D animated, good lighting. Like you make all your models, you do all your whatever. You get voice actors, and by voice actors I mean like me and T-Dreads. But you get people to come in and do your videos. You created 3D. You made a toy Freddy version of your own avatar for like an April Fool's joke.
I mean, I will say most of the animatronic models that I use, I do source from online, but I appreciate it. I mean, it's like you were saying in terms of categories. Now, I guess I just would look at the channel as like a FNAF general channel. Like it's mostly theories, but the reboot stuff is the most exciting stuff that I'm doing for me personally. Like I really love working on that. So, it's. Yeah, that would be, I guess, like a more general FNAF content. It's nothing theory-based. Although I suppose when I'm writing those, I am keeping in mind stuff that I believe about the series, such as Charlie83. I'm incorporating stuff that I believe into the series. I'm trying to keep in mind as well, like, what's the most general believed opinion? What's something that people consider, but maybe would work a little bit better if it were true, or if it weren't true, or whatever. So, there's definitely an element of theorizing that goes into making those reboot videos, but they're a lot of fun. They're just basically fan fiction with a bunch of bells and whistles on them.
Yeah, you choosing 93 for the FNAF 1 date in the reboot video broke my heart.
Yeah, that was more of a community thing. I was like, listen, if Scott was rewriting it and he had to sit down and pick a date, if it wasn't 92 or 90 whatever, I feel like as just like an homage, I think 93, just putting a big stamp on it and saying, yes, definitely this thing. I might as well pick the most accepted date, because I just imagined all the comments being like, how dare you change the date to this thing? Or I didn't want to make it 89 and then be like, yeah, my theory is correct in my version. So I mean, I'm definitely going to get those comments though when FNAF 3 is in 2015.
All right. Maybe we can get around to more of that discussion at the end of this little theory thing that we're doing right now. So, sweet. As I was saying earlier, last week I had on Fazent to discuss Charlie87. You're here to represent Charlie83, and I want you to outline to the fine people watching at home, what is Charlie83? Because FNAF theory names are nonsense. They've gotten so like FNAF theory names are like postmodern art at this point. Where they're
honestly, yeah.
It's like no, you don't understand.
Funny, I see people, discussing like. Sorry, we keep talking about it. You go.
Part of the appeal of the theory is just how ridiculous you can sort of make the name. Like we had a chat yesterday. I think it was Fazent trying to figure out like, what should I call this theory that's not like completely insane.
Yes. Yeah.
We're just brainstorming.
I really like God David, for example, because that is a play. It really is like art. Like you can track the history or etymology. You can like track the history of the words because like God David is a play on God victim, which itself is a play on memory victim. Which is just like oh my, there's so much like dead God theory as well. It's kind of like combining a bunch of stuff. Like God David really has nothing to do with the theory itself because the God David part isn't about David being any sort of influential, like,
Yeah.
field force. It's kind of more about just that he becomes the crying child, or, the crying child is based on him or whatever. But yeah, it's really funny looking at some of those names. I do like it whenever a new name comes out and I'm like, that's actually, I like that, or I see one I haven't heard before and it's really intriguing to try and hunt that down and figure it out.
Yep. Especially like Fazburger, I feel like that immediately just took over. I was like, that's such a
Yeah,
good name.
that's great.
It's such a great name.
Yeah. Yeah,
For
and then seeing it in FNAF World, like, oh my god, Fazburger, what?
I have to work at the
But
Fazburger
yeah,
across the street.
yes. To answer your question about Charlie83, basically, in the most simple terms, it's purely the belief that Charlie Emily, Henry's daughter, who eventually possesses the puppet, dies in 1983. I don't. There's nothing specific about Charlie83, whether it's before the bite victim or after the bite victim, or if it has anything to do with the MCI at all. It's purely the belief that the puppet died in 1983, and then you can put on like your sub definitions of like Charlie83 pre MCI, Charlie83 pre bite victim, Charlie83 first. You can do all these kind of extra asterisks at the end. But yeah, basically it's just that Charlie herself dies in 1983 and not in 87 or 85 or any of the other dates, or 82.
Yeah, I think that the order of bite victim, Elizabeth, and Charlie is probably one of the things with the least consensus in the fandom, because
Absolutely.
anyone could make like, and there's a bunch of permutations of those different orders. When you throw the MCI in there, it gets very sticky, because you're like, well, my theory
Yes.
only makes sense if Elizabeth was after the MCI, or my theory only makes sense if blah blah blah. I do,
Yeah.
from just my perspective of the fandom and the people I talk to and my comments, I do think that Charlie83 is vastly more popular than Charlie87. But that
Yes.
doesn't mean that there weren't great arguments for 87. If anyone's watching right now who didn't see that live stream last week, you can watch the VOD on my channel. I think that Fazant had a couple great arguments. One of the ones that he brought up is 5 laps at Freddy's
Yes.
and the 87 dice in the car,
Yeah.
and the fact that a lot of people, I believe yourself included, thinks that the later that night minigame is right after Charlie's death.
Yes.
So how would you address
So
that immediate, like, well, if you think later that night's after the murder and there's 87 in the mirror, what does it mean?
So there's a couple of ways you can look at it. First of all, we've already just spoken on a couple of occasions about FLAF's kind of, right now it's this like tenuous, is it going to be accurate? Is it just some weird stuff that got left in for the beta? Is it, can we really trust it? Is it something that's got missed? Is it something that's got specifically asked to be put in there? To me, it would be strange for the developers to just throw that in there and not consider it. I guess you could look at it as like, oh, it's just some like artist was like, oh, 87 is the FNAF number. We could just put that in and just kind of threw it in. Because based on like the Into the Pit game, I have a feeling that any of these companies that come on and work in FNAF but aren't Scott or Steelwool don't necessarily know what they're getting into in terms of the theorizing community, because actually I was on another podcast recently, and we were discussing Into the Pit, and I was saying that like any other game, Easter eggs are just Easter eggs. You kind of go, oh, that's fun. But like in the Spider-Man PS4 game, there were these like low poly models like off in the distance that people no clipped and went up to and were like, oh, these guys are crazy looking. So in the remaster, they put like a sticky note on them that said like, hey, did you miss us? And I was saying, in FNAF, we'd all be going, "Oh my, the NPCs are self-aware. They're coming to life. It's actually canon. What? Who put the note there? Why is the note yellow? Sticky note room? Like we'd be doing all this kind of extra stuff." So I feel like 87 dice could be an Easter egg, but if I'm taking it at the most face value, in terms of okay, let's be fair and not like copium our way out of this. Something to note about those dice is that they do have other sides which are not congruous to like a real dice. So on the 87, on the 7 dice, there are also 2 faces which have 83 on them. Or sorry, 3. There's 2 sides of the dice which have 3, which obviously is not correct for a dice. So part of what, and this is a little bit of copium in fairness, but part of what I was thinking is with Five Laps at Freddy's talking about Midnight Motorist, and Midnight Motorist talking about presumably Afton coming home in the car, going into a house where there's one figure sitting on a couch watching TV and another figure locked in a room who's a male. My kind of thought on that from Scott's point of view is like, okay, what is he doing with this whole mini game? He's probably trying to tell us something about something we don't know. So one of those things that was kind of up in the air at the time was the death order. And if you're making Afton drive in the purple car from Security Puppet, go to this other place. It's a house down the road from a small establishment, and there's a guy watching TV and another guy in the room. My thought is like, yes, technically it could be Mrs. Afton on the couch, or yes, it could be a babysitter on the couch, or Aunt Jen, or whoever. But why include a character like that if you're trying to indicate that Bite Victim's already dead? What I think, if it was supposed to be Mike Runaway, I think it would make more sense for him to come to home to an empty house that only has Michael in it. You know what I mean? So I think that the Runaway has a good chance of being the Bite Victim. So with the 87, 83 dice, to bring it back to that, in the FNAF 4 teasers, 87 was the first thing that you saw in all of those source code teasers. But actually, if we looked deeper and then later on as it went, there were more 83s than 87s. So part of mine, like, is if Scott made this like as a conscious choice, you know, let's put it on these dice, could it be a reference back to FNAF 4 and be like, okay, 87 is on the face of it, but, you know, which also relates to Bite Victim with the whole bite thing. But if you look closer, there's actually more 3s on there, and so then it's 83, 83. I know that sounds a bit like copium, but it's like a consideration I was having when I found out that of all numbers, there are 2 extra 3s on that dice, which feels a little bit, I don't know. It's a very big coincidence if that wasn't the intention. Like, it could have been a double 1 or a double 2 or whatever we were talking about it. But the fact that it's 3 next to an 8, I don't know, it seems a little bit relevant.
Yeah, you keep saying like, oh, it's copium. I think you can be a little more like confident in in believing the possibility that it's something other than a lore hint, because with very little, I have no real insight into how game development works, but I have worked on group projects before, and so I think there's a possibility that whoever like modeled the Midnight Motor car, they're like, oh, we're going to put dice in the mirror. And what are we going to put on the dice? Was that the Bite of 87 Markiplier meme?
Yeah.
And that's all it means. It's just a reference to the most popular FNAF phrase of all time, which is Markiplier going, was that the Bite of 87?
And in fairness, like, I know it is the Midnight Motor, but it's also, at least whoever was making that car, they were making it Williams' car. Yes. And I know it is the Midnight Motorist car, but I could see an argument that, like, no, this is Williams' car. It's not just the car from 1983 during that minigame. This is his car, so we're going to put references to other stuff that was happening in Williams' life. Like, it's the William reference car. And if he's there at the DCI, that could be a William, like, 87 DCI reference as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be just the Midnight Motorist, purely that one minigame reference. Because also there's a Spring Bonnie head. And, like, Spring Bonnie is not involved in that minigame. Unless it's the feet outside, I guess. But, you know.
Yeah, like, when we look at 5 Laps at Freddy's for lore, we're sort of looking at it in terms of trying to make theories or trying to get evidence. And the Midnight Motor car on the Midnight Motorist track is sort of immediately jumps out as like, these are real things from the game. The way that the Chica's Cupcake car in the basement of the Pizzaplex track, right? Like, those things don't go together. That doesn't teach you anything. The Midnight Motor car, if it is supposed to be William, if Midnight Motorist William is accurate, which obviously I still have my questions about, but if we can take that for true, they might not think, oh, when you place this car on that track to get lore, everything has to
Hmm.
make sense. They might just think to themselves, this car is the William car, it can have anachronisms, it can
Hmm.
have blah, blah, blah.
Yes. Yeah. Like it's not like you can only play that car on that level or anything. Like it's obviously from that minigame. It's obviously referencing that minigame. But in itself, it is a reference to the Take Cake to the Children, obviously. So it's like that's a you could even argue that mini game comes from FNAF 2, which was set in 1987. So it could even
Mm-hmm.
be a reference to that. There's so many things it could be. And again, like I was just arguing that you can always argue like yes, it's just some random person on the couch, but you have to look at why someone will put it in. But just specifically with FLAF, it's an outside developer. It's a new developer that haven't worked with Scott yet until this game, and we don't know the ins and outs yet of it. Like in a few years, Scott could sit down with Dawko, at the 15th anniversary and
Mm-hmm.
go, "Oh yeah, working with Click Team was crazy. Like they just started putting in Midnight Motorist stuff, and I didn't even know what they were doing. And then I just showed up, and suddenly all this Midnight Motorist stuff was in the game."
Yeah, I was busy writing the script for a Hollywood movie and also Secret of the Mimic at
Yeah,
the same time.
yeah,
And
exactly.
and this demo for this game came out that I hadn't even laid my eyes on, and now people are yelling at me saying proved the lore or whatever.
Yeah, I think especially stuff like the dice, like I can see, okay, he probably saw it being played at the very least before it got released. I feel like he has run into enough problems with quality assurance before and has enough like trauma from FNAF World that he probably wouldn't put out this quite out of left field game, which is in some ways it's like a spiritual successor to FNAF World and the fact that it's like an out of genre game, for the first time in a long time. If you don't count those like jokey, Freddy and Space stuff. But like considering he's been burned before, I could see it that he at least played the game and he probably saw the Midnight Motorist car. But did he go in and zoom in and no clip and go up to the dice in the mirror and go, "Oh, wait a minute, that's 87. That shouldn't be there." I can see it that he put a passing glance over it and went, "Yeah, cool." Because that 87 thing wasn't even discovered by the community for like a week or something after the demo came out.
Mm-hmm. Also, the game, or the demo at least, is completely broken and doesn't work, and you can bug your way in one of
Yeah,
the
well, that's
tracks to
true.
just keep looping. Like, I personally just don't see the point in speculating on what evidence the full version might contain.
Yeah,
So I'm
exactly.
I always, since it came out, have been operating sort of on two headspaces. One is if the game releases and it's identical to how it is currently, what would my beliefs
Mhm.
be? Versus if I ignore that the demo even exists, what would my beliefs be? And so I kind of operate under both of those at the same time. Um,
Yes, yeah, exactly.
I told Fazant last week, like, if the game comes out and it's identical, I do think that that's incredible evidence for Charlie87.
Hmm.
Especially, and I don't know, maybe you might have different thoughts on this, with the community interpreting the demo the way that they have. I have a feeling that if we were wrong, that might cause them to change the design. They're like, oh, we have misled them with this little
Yeah.
Easter egg. Maybe it would be less of a headache if we just changed it.
Yeah, absolutely. If the game comes out and it's still there and there are even more 87 references, because I know it's a demo and it's whatever, and it looks like, oh, this is probably what this track will look like when it comes out. But the fact that it is a demo, it could come out in like a year or 2 years and suddenly there's so much more, like that. I know there was an update where they removed the no lore here thing
Mm-hmm.
under the mound. Um, so you don't know, like there could be an entire part of that map which we haven't seen yet. Maybe you go to the Midnight Motorist house, or maybe they'll completely update it and change how the mechanics work, and maybe the Midnight Motor car will have a completely different design, and like so there's so much stuff that could change. But if that is going to remain, that is, I will admit, very good evidence for 87 Midnight Motorist at least, which in fairness, I do think is after Security Puppet, so that would be good Charlie 87 evidence, absolutely.
Mm. All right. Well, chat, we have 200 viewers and only 76 likes. I don't know what you're even doing
Oh
right
my
now.
lord.
We
This
have
is
the
crazy.
the unwithered truth here. How you're embarrassing me in front of the unwithered truth. Come on, guys, you gotta like the
Guys, my
stream,
my my truth is unwithered. Come on. Hit the like button.
and you all gotta spam 14. Okay, so I feel like when it comes to this debate, the 5 laps at Freddy's, the 87 dice, is sort of the second tier of smoking gun evidence. Like, I think that that's very
Mhm.
compelling to a lot of people. The first would be the gravestones in Help Wanted 2. Do
Yes.
you want to
Yeah.
explain to the people what
So
that is, why it's evidence for 87, and why you sort of dismiss it?
yeah, so there are gravestones in one of the endings of, or basically the main endings of Help Wanted 2, wherein you have to light the graves in a particular order to get the like most super secret ending, and that order is it's basically the MCI starting with Susie, ending up with the puppet being the last of that grave order, right? So it goes. Um, Chica, Foxy, Freddy, Bonnie, Golden Freddy, and then the puppet, I believe, because they've got little there's graves with the little puppets, the little dolls with the masks on, and if you light those up in this correct order, quote unquote, then it ends up with the puppet at the last. So, in fairness, if you think of a grave order and you go this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, you would think, okay, this is the order in which the graves were laid, perhaps. There's no real evidence of that in previous games, but it's an order that you have to get correct, and most of the time chronological order would just go, in a straight line. So the puppet being last, oh, that might be evidence that the puppet is the last victim, and therefore if you line it up with FLAF and some other stuff, then 87 makes sense if Charlie does die after the MCI and they all died in 85. Now, in terms of why I kind of dismiss that evidence, in fairness, the first time I saw it, I went, okay, that's going to have to make me rethink things a good bit. Mainly because I couldn't think of a way that it might work without Susie, with Susie being first, because of the I was the first, I have seen everything line.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, well, her being first is kind of lining up with that, so that would make sense. But now we have all the Secret of the Mimic stuff, where
Mm.
Chica is presumably the earliest of the Freddy's band to be created. And I went in my latest theory video about God David and the one you should have killed and stuff, that I think that's more solidly linking Chica, the character, to being the first, rather than Susie, the victim, being the first to be killed. Um, and so now I look at that grave order and I go, okay, well, now we don't necessarily have to say that Susie was the first person who died. Like we don't necessarily have to always put her at the very, very beginning of the MCI. Uh, some people still could, and some people argue that, well, I was the first could have two meanings, or it
Yep.
might not be that she was the first Freddy band, whatever. Um, but something that is interesting is if you do believe Charlie first and then Bite Victim and then the MCI, you could have a scenario where you're actually flipping the grave order and you're going backwards through memories. Because I think that the idea currently around the community is that those puppets represent memories of Glitchtrap. And considering they're graves, and graves usually indicate, like, a newer grave, you would put down the most recently, and then the oldest grave would be the last. You could argue that you're going backwards, and that the Golden Freddy would be representative of Bite Victim rather than of Cassidy, if that character is a thing. I
Hmm.
know that's also up in the air at the minute. Um, but yeah, if you're going backwards through time, you'd end up on the puppet, and you'd have Golden Freddy right before it. So the two of them being next to each other, I think, kind of works, because we don't necessarily have any evidence that Cassidy was in any particular order the last or the first of the MCI, but we do have evidence that Bite Victim and Charlie probably died quite closely together, if you believe 83.
Yeah,
Also, I will say as well, the reason I'm saying it's probably more likely to be Bite Victim than Cassidy is that to get the Bite Victim, or sorry, to get the Golden Freddy puppet, you have to go into the Fizzy Faz minigame and mix the other four or the other five flavors of Fizzy Faz together, and then put that into the machine that you can like dump it. And when you dump that, you get the Golden Freddy puppet, which to me seems like a sort of Happiest Day reference where you're putting the other
Mhm.
four things together and getting the fifth one. So if that was the case and you believe that Bite Victim is the Happiest Day receiver, then you'd have a relation. There's so many like,
Yeah,
if you believe this, then
Jenga
this, and if you believe
Tower.
that, then this. Yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
If you believe bite victim receiver, and if you interpret the soda being poured together in one way, then that definitely means that it's
Yes.
Golden Freddy is the bite victim and not Cassidy, which means that if you put it next to the
Yeah.
puppet, we're implying it's preempting. You know, total coherent. Everyone watching this at home knows exactly what you're talking about.
Everyone knows it.
As I staked my very first FNAF video, you know, my 9 hour video. I staked my like not my reputation, but like I put my foot down. I'm like, I was the first. I've seen everything. Is Chica speaking, not Susie? When I made my
Yes.
MCI, I put the characters in a random order just because I didn't really have an opinion on the
Yeah.
death order. But I specifically did not put Susie first because I wanted to like make people angry. I wanted them to be like, Susie must be first because of this voice line. And I'd be like, Susie might be
Yeah.
first, but it's not because of that voice line, because to me that voice line
Yeah.
has always meant Chica was the first. So I've been on
Yeah.
that.
Classic bit of GiBi rage baiting.
Yes, I've been on that for 2 years. Uh,
Yeah. And I think it makes sense as well because some people have pointed out with that line, and you may have said this, it's been a while since I watched that video, but the idea that in William Afton's hell, a spirit telling him that they were killed first is a bit like, well, why would you tell him? You know what I
it's
mean?
me,
Like,
Susie.
it
Remember,
kind of,
you killed me.
yeah,
The
like
arcade game with the
it
dog.
feels more like, the character Chica might be like, I've been here longer than anybody else. I've seen everything that you've done, and if you relate that back to Murray's costume manner, then you have a whole thing of, yeah, she was there before William even got involved in that whole situation. So yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
I said hell, but his purgatory or whatever you want to call it.
yeah, yeah. I think that the the order and it's always hard to say something with like confidence or to say like, oh yes, of course this applies to everyone because it totally doesn't. But
Mhm.
anyone who would be subscribed to my channel, all 200 people who are watching this interview right now, care a lot about like the lore of the game, and we want to know the death order.
Yes.
That's not important to the story of FNAF. Who cares in what order these 5 faceless, personalityless kids died?
Hmm.
All that matters is like William is bad guy. William stuffed in suits, animatronics come to life. William got his karmic justice when he got springlocked, right? Like that's the plot of FNAF.
Yeah.
Something like the history of the animatronic characters, the extremely marketable plushes and toys, is almost more important to FNAF than the history of the 5, you know, palette swapped children who happen to die. So
Yes.
I can see
Yeah.
Scott
Yeah.
being like, Chica's history as the first animatronic means more to the story of the franchise than Susie being the first MCI kid. Because who cares? They all died over the course of like, a day or possibly like a week or something. Like, all the kids died. They're all the same. Who cares? None of them have characters. But Chica
Mhm.
has a character. So you guys need to know that she's actually older than Freddy.
Yes. Yeah. And there's also a weird thing with the help wanted graves in general, where they all have these like little gemstones on them or the little lights that are going up them,
Mhm.
and they don't align with the order in which you have to light up the graves. And I've yet to see a good explanation as to what those dots mean, because it's like Chica has no dots. There isn't any, because I think the Bonnie grave is broken. The puppet one has 3, but then the top is broken off. The Golden Freddy one has 4, but one of them's missing. And it's like, what do they mean? Like, is this some sort of other cipher that we're
Mhm.
missing? Because that could lead to a completely different answer. But I don't think I've really seen anyone properly tackling that. Anyone in the comments, anyone in chat, if you have a reason that I've missed, let me know.
Has anyone, so yeah, some of them are broken. Has anyone tried to use that to be like, well, the broken gravestone would be the oldest, and the most pristine might be the newest? Like, if you do that, what order do you come to? Do you know if anyone's tried to look at the
See.
evidence that way?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure because it's just weird because some of them, because if they all had 4 dots and then it was just like there was bits broken off of each of them that you could only see certain
Mm-hmm.
ones, that'd be different. But some of them just don't have any dots at all, or some of them only have 2 dots. Some of them have 4 or 3, or there's like 4, but the top's broken off. So I really don't know. I'm really not sure if that's part of it. Is dual processing? Isn't that just the OF puzzle? I'm not sure what that is. So again, it's this is the thing is after so many times of looking at these pieces of evidence and hearing so many different people's opinions on it, I sometimes just forget the most like basic level interpretation. Do we use the dot number to solve the order? We might do, but I don't think they align with. It might be something to do with like figuring out which ones you have to line up first, but I don't, as in like the number of things on them doesn't correspond with like, oh, the puppy you have to light up last or anything. Maybe it does. I'm completely wrong.
Yeah, it looks like, and I wish I could pull this up on stream, but I can't. One of them's missing the top. One of them is missing the top half. One of them's completely missing. One of them is totally fine. One of them has a big crack in the middle, and another one's totally fine, but it's blank.
Oh, maybe it does actually, because maybe some people are saying, oh, because it's like Chira's 0, which is weird because it's not even number 1 and it's number 0 up to number 4, up to number 5, which is weird. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But yeah, it's because I've never seen people really bring that up, but maybe it's just because I'm dumb. I forgot. But anyway, so yeah, that would be my kind of take on the help wanted graves. Is you could interpret it like going backwards, you could interpret it going forwards, you could. There's a lot of ways of looking at that, and it's not explicitly stated that you're going in chronological order. And by that argument, the Chica grave is the most pristine because it's not damaged and there's no little dots on it.
Yes. The other sort of the other Chica, or sorry, the other Susie first evidence would be the party ending in Help Wanted 1. Do you have any comments about that, or do you want to explain what that is?
Oh yeah, the Help Wanted 1 ending. That's that in the back room. You basically get led into the back room by Glitch Trap, and Bonnie and Chica are there already, and I think Foxy is there already, and you become Gabriel, and or the idea is that you're Gabriel and you stuffed because you end up as Freddy on stage. Personally, that minigame has so many issues in terms of how it relates to the MCI in general that I personally think it's just like, it's creepy. Like, it's like, it's an MCI reference, but I don't think we're supposed to look at that and go, yes, so this person had to have died first. Because also, you can look at that minigame and go, oh yeah, well, Bonnie's dead, or Chica's dead first, or Foxy died. We only know that from that inference that Gabriel died last or second to last, depending on what Golden Freddy is. That's kind of that. I've looked at that before, and I just haven't found it super compelling because there's so many differences in how the MCI happened to this one.
Yes. So a lot of FNAF theories come down to people might see a piece of evidence or just see a piece of data, right? A piece of information, and extrapolate something from that information. And it could be a totally logical extrapolation from the thing they're seeing. Yes, you light graves in an order, so that's the order of the death. You enter the party room, and Chica and Bonnie both have their hats, and the other ones don't, so those two are already dead, and you're Freddy, so therefore Freddy was third. But it seems like the community sees these pieces of evidence being extrapolated into theories, and values that more than the refutation of the theory. Because really the only thing you can say is, I don't believe you. All you really are saying is like, I disagree that is compelling toward me. And so I think a sort of neutral third party would be like, well, he's making a logical point, and he's just saying, nah-uh.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, I think, I mean, like, there's also stuff like, do they really look like they've been stuffed already? And I mean, Bonnie's missing his face in that one, so that's more like a FNAF 2 reference, which I guess you could say is like, oh, the Withereds are like the FNAF 1 animatronics after the MCI, blah, 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 blah. But it's just, yeah, it's not.
Yeah, I got a lot of, I'm probably number one, Dream Theory FNAF 4 hater. Like, even when MatPat first put out the video, a lot of people didn't like the theory, but I was even like, this is wrong. Like, those two grandfather clocks are not the same grandfather clock. And in my video, like, sort of disproving Dream Theory, I was like, I don't know why Scott asked why Toy Chica's missing her beak, but that doesn't mean that MatPat's answer of it's all a dream is the correct one. And a lot of people got
Yeah,
mad at me in my
exactly.
comments for that. They're like, well, if you can't come up with a better answer, then MatPat's theory is better than yours. And I'm like, well,
Yeah,
is
I don't know
it?
if that's how it works. Oh, this is the other. I just was because I was trying to remember because I remember I was looking at Help Wanted before on T-Dread stream, and I was like, what was it specifically that stood out to me? If you believe the Grave Order, you can't believe that Help Wanted is relevant, or if you believe that Help Wanted is relevant,
Mhm.
Grave Order, because Chica is 0, Foxy is 1, Freddy is 2, so or 3 or whatever. But then Bonnie is after Freddy. So if you think that the party hats represent the victims, then Bonnie comes before Freddy. But if you don't, that if you think that, then you can't think that the Grave Order is the same thing. So you can't have, your cake and eat it too.
Mhm.
Haha, cake.
So their name's cut off, but somewhat in chat just said maybe the Grave Order is the order the animatronics were created, with Chica in 65, Foxy in 71, based on David's first birthday, right, with the little Foxy puppet.
Yeah.
Freddy, Bonnie, Golden Freddy in the mid 70s. I think a lot of people would attribute Golden Freddy and Freddy to being made around the same time. I'm not entirely sure how that works. And then the puppet in 79, because we see the plans for the puppet in Secret of the Mimic, meaning it has not been built yet.
Yeah, so
Yep.
I guess that would depend on if you think Golden Freddy is the original Fredbear or if he is Fredbear post like rebranding. So in the beginning it was Freddy and Bonnie, but then it became Golden Freddy and Spring Bonnie after some sort of like shift around, around the time of Secret of the Mimic. Um Fredbear has always been the like earliest one, quote unquote, in terms of what we've seen. It's always Fredbear comes before Freddy and the gang, and I don't know. Yeah, I guess it could be Chica comes first, then Foxy. But again, it's like, who do we? Would that be represented by the graves? Because that's more about the spirits. Would that necessarily relate to that? I don't know. There's questions around what that would represent then in terms of the graves and why that would be relevant to making them graves rather than something else. I know it's because it's already from Princess Quest, but it could be. It could absolutely be that, but I'm a little iffy on that idea.
Yeah, and then you're sort of dismissing the Fredbear singing show black and white poster, which kind of puts Fredbear in the
Yeah,
30s. And then the counter to
yeah,
that is like, well, a poster from the real 30s wouldn't be in black and white, only televisions were black and white. The day that Mickey Mouse originally came out, it was already in
yeah,
posters in color. So, like, is this Steelwool being
yeah.
stupid? Is it Steelwool trying to convey something in a simple manner that people are reading into? Or is it literally just saying that it's the oldest?
I think it's that. I think it is that. How do we convey that this is really old? Uh, you put it in black and white and you give it the old like Mickey Mouse ink blot eyes,
Mm-hmm.
the little pie cut eyes. Um, yeah, again, it's like yes, obviously there were colored posters at that stage, but how do you convey it's really old? You put it in black and white, and like it's all torn up on the edges, and you make the ticket price really cheap. It's like 10 cents or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a little bit of leeway you have to give in the storytelling to go. Yeah, they're conveying that it's really old. And again, it's if you relate Golden Freddy to Fredbear, or if you say that Fredbear is just an older version of Freddy, and Golden Freddy is like a rebrand of Fredbear and keeps the name but changes the appearance. And so, does that count as him coming later on, or blah 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 blah?
Yeah, it's like the flatline noise in FNAF 4. It's like, well,
Hmm.
flatlines don't exist in real life. So is Scott implying that they unplugged Crying Child, or is Scott using a flatline sound effect because people will recognize that as someone dying? Or does Scott not know
Yeah,
that? It's like, well, it could be any of them. But I think the default
it could be any of
assumption
them.
the default assumption should just be that he's dying and that Scott's using that sound effect to mean that he's dying.
He just died. Yeah.
Yep. So that's we've been discussing sort of why you don't believe Charlie87, and that all the really
Yeah.
important big pieces of information that sort of convince people on 87 is stuff that you don't find compelling or that you think has
Yeah.
alternative solutions. But what to you is what's the Charlie83 smoking gun, or even just what are all the vast amounts of evidence that to you make it a more compelling theory?
Yeah, I was taking notes on this earlier, and we've gone over some of it, but I will go through, I suppose, in no particular order, but I kind of left the more beefier parts of the theory till later. But I'll run over a couple of them. So in the Silver Eyes trilogy, Charlie's death is first said to be in 82, but then later changed to be 1983. And I think part of that is like Scott, like in universe or in canon, I suppose, because it's not in continuity, doing the same thing that he did with Save Him versus Security Puppet, where he kind of had this male victim gets replaced by the female victim, and a little bit of like timeline restructuring in that last book by changing the year. And I think there would be no need to do that if there wasn't some sort of relevance to what he was considering with the other games. This was also in the book that came out just after FFPS, where that date change is important. And usually the novel trilogy aligns pretty closely in terms of like order of events, not necessarily years. But in fairness, it is also a huge bit of evidence that people use for MCI 85.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also something that, you know, I've even used myself for Elizabeth pre-MCI evidence based on how William discusses the reason he did the MCI being a recreation of Elizabeth's accident when she got killed and all this kind of stuff. So I think that being, first of all, made at the beginning around FNAF 4 and then all the way up until FFPS, and none of that being finagled with to realign it with the games or anything like that, you know, I think there is evidence in that to show, oh, well, these two timelines are pretty much aligned, and if you're using it for one piece of evidence, there's no reason you shouldn't use it for another piece of evidence, unless there is overwhelmingly contradictory stuff like we have now with Secret of the Mimic. So we can't necessarily align it all with like the Fredbear Henry stuff, but we can import in certain bits here and there.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Help Wanted 2 drawer, which opens up with 1983. And I know people are going to say, and I know one of the counter arguments to the Help Wanted drawer in the Sister Location Bunker is that that's the number that you use anyway in the game. So it's not necessarily saying, oh, the puppet is 1983. It's just saying the Sister Location drawer is 1983. So you have to input that same code. But I would say that there is an argument to be made that like putting the puppet in that drawer specifically is interesting rather than like Freddy or somebody else. Like you could put any of them in that drawer. You could say, you know, well, you could put, you know, Golden Freddy in there if it is the bite victim. But the fact that it is the puppet in that drawer and then putting in that code and kind of going, oh, interesting, okay. If that game was trying to confirm 87 Charlie or try and like make us think again about where the puppet is aligned in terms of those graves, I feel like changing that code could have been useful in communicating that, but keeping it the same and putting the puppet in that drawer, I think it's interesting to say that, oh, well, that means nothing, but the graves are definitely true.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have, it kind of went through the Midnight Motorist. I think that the bite victim runaway would place him being alive when Charlie's murdered. Part of what I think maybe... Yeah,
can I do a devil's advocate about the book evidence
Sure.
for a second? So I think there's two counterpoints people might come up with to say why that's not compelling. And the first would be that in the books, the spring locking incident is in 1995. So why are we taking 83 as Charlie's death, 85 as the MCI, but then not using 95 for the spring locking incident when the main part of the Silver Eyes takes place? Why do two of the dates line up, but they don't? Yeah. So
where he becomes Springtrap.
Yeah, the meat...
I would argue that 95 works fine. I could see that being true.
You can see 95 being when Follow Me takes place?
Yeah, 100%. I already think it takes place after 1 anyway, so I'm totally fine with that date, because I think like there's all the stuff. I know you're more of a Follow Me before FNAF 2 believer, if I'm correct.
After FNAF 2, before FNAF 1.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So the way I look at it is in terms of Scott cons, right? Because Follow Me seems to later on be now about Molten MCI and that being related to that incident. But I think the reason it's in FNAF 3 first of all, it's to establish that William gets spring locked and becomes Springtrap, and that's the whole idea. But I think the main function of those mini games, beyond the Springtrap stuff, is to show what happened in between FNAF 1 and FNAF 3. It's going, okay, the pizzeria is all run down. There's nobody there. It's just been kind of left, out to break down, and the rain's coming in through the ceiling, and there's rats on the floor, and nobody's here. There's no night guard. It's just empty. We have the animatronics on stage. They get lured away, and then they get destroyed. And the spirits get let out, but they're a little bit lost. Like, they don't have anywhere to go then. They don't have a physical body anymore. And so then in FNAF 3, that's why they only find these, like, costume pieces, and they don't find any fully functional animatronics. And in that game, I think it makes sense as a storytelling device to be like, okay, we've gone to FNAF 1, then we went back to FNAF 2. Now we're going to show you what happened in between 1 and 3. He showed up, he destroyed them. That's why there's no robots left anymore, except for him in the back room.
Yep, that's a good argument. So that would allow the 3 dates in Silver Eyes to line up with the 3 things in game. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other counter I think people would say is that if we're using the Silver Eyes, and also by extension Frights, because in Frights the MCI is also in 85, if we're using the Silver Eyes and Frights to get dates, why can't we use the movies? Because the movies seem to show different possible death orders, different possible interpretations of the DCI, different possible, who haunts what animatronic, stuff like that. So if we can use Silver Eyes, why can't we use the movies?
I think using the movies is not the most egregious thing. Like, I don't look at the movies and go, this confirms that it takes place in 2000 or whatever. I think the way you could look at it is, well, first of all, we don't know enough yet about the second movie to know enough about Charlie. Like, it could be that Charlie died in 86. Or it could be that was actually Fredbear's and then it became the FNAF. Like, we don't know yet because the trailers could be edited in such a way that it's leading us astray and making us think one thing when it's actually the other. But I would say, like, it's the context of the scenario more so, or if something is so clearly, like, out of left field, like Vanessa, for example, she's being, like, kind of taken from one part of the timeline, just plopped into another one. So anything related to her, I'd be like, well, that's a little bit ropey now because we know that in the games she's just from way later. So it's harder to just, like, translate one-to-one another story. Or with Mike, if he's not William's kid in any way, shape, or form, then it gets a little bit ropey to kind of start picking and choosing dates from that, because we can go, okay, well, is that this or is it this? How much of it is true? How much of it isn't true? In general, it seemed like the Silver Eyes was a little bit more aligned with when they were coming out, and they seemed to be tackling stuff that the games would either then tackle directly after or were being tackled directly beforehand, and it was like commenting on those. And then the movie, depending on if the DCI happens or doesn't happen, or if it's, I mean, we also don't have any evidence of it happening in Silver Eyes or in anything after FNAF 2, to be fair. I guess, I know there's, like, the book, the novelization seems to put the MCI in 87, which could be the case maybe in that universe. I don't know. I'm also, like, ropey on taking the novelization into full account and making, because all the dates and everything of the Tales from the Pizza Plex books didn't make much sense either. So dates and stuff like that, yeah, I understand why people would be ropey about taking them from one thing and not from another. But I would also say that the movie is being written as a, not to, this is going to sound like I'm, like, talking bad about the movie, but more so that it's, like, being a very simplified, distilled version, I suppose, for general audiences. So taking, and also, like, for all FNAF fans, like, they're probably not gonna get up to, like, movie 12 and make a Secret of the Mimic movie. They're probably, if they're gonna do anything like that, it'll be taken from one part and put into another. So that kind of distillation of the series into something which a very different format, a very much shorter format where you don't get into everything as in detail, is harder to pull from because it's more abstracted. Whereas with a book, you've got all this time to just explore characters and explore dates and explore events and all this kind of stuff. Whereas a movie, it's like you got to compact that into 2 hours, and it's not necessarily important for your movie to go in exactly in terms of dates and stuff like that. But as far as I can tell, the order of events seems to be lining up pretty well. Like, we've got Charlie seemingly killed before the MCI. We've got the MCI sometime in the past at an open Freddy's. This FNAF 2 restaurant is going to be confusing if it's taking place before the first location or whatever. But then we have William getting springlocked at the original location where the MCI happened after it's shut down. So that kind of lines up as well. So it's a streamlined version of it, but I can't say confidently that, like, oh yeah, well, the movie, you can't use anything from it, but the books, you can use everything from them. You got to kind of weight it based on how closely it seems to be already aligning with the other stuff.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's a good response to my two counterpoints then. What I guess continue with your pro 83 evidence.
Sweet. So I'll move on from, I think I was talking about Midnight Motorist. I'll move on from that to FNAF 2, which is the game, that most people point to if you're looking at 87 evidence. I'm going to look at the stuff that's in support of 83 rather than against 87. We can talk about some of the, stuff that people use for 87 evidence and then look at FNAF 2 again. But in terms of pro 83 evidence, Ralph, one of the only things he really comments on the puppet is, I never liked that puppet thing. It's always thinking and it can go anywhere. And in UCN, we find out that Charlie is more aware than the others, supposedly. They're more like animals. She's more aware, which I think implies she has a little bit more control over her vessel than the others. She's obviously not free from it because the music box works on her. But go anywhere, to me, sounds like she's showing up in places that she shouldn't be showing up. She's not following her programming 100% of the time. So when Ralph is being very upset by, like there's the line as well where he goes, it shouldn't affect all of them, but it does affect one of them. And he gets like uncomfortable talking about the puppet. I never liked that puppet thing. That means that Ralph has known it for longer than this location. It's been disconcerting, since he's known about it. And I think, again, from a writing perspective, from like Scott telling a story, and I know this is very early on in the franchise, but like from the perspective of what you're trying to communicate to an audience, if the character has only recently been possessed, I think it would be weird to be like, yeah, but actually just the robot has always been creepy and the possession has nothing to do with it being creepy. That's just kind of a recent development. But he also never liked the robot anyway. You know what I mean? Like, him not liking it seems to be related to the fact that it's different than the others, which to me implies that it's been possessed the longest. And a little bit on that then, in Help Wanted, the puppet is paired up with the classic animatronics, not the toys. Like we see the puppet on the Fall Fest poster, and it's alongside the classic animatronics with Foxy there. And any of the marketing in the FNAF 2 building is missing the puppet on it. Like it's got Toy Bonnie, Toy Freddy, Toy Chica, Funtime Foxy, and no puppet whatsoever. And you'd think if this was a brand new animatronic that had just been developed for this location, that would be one of the like new animatronics, would be one of the new ones. It seems to be the puppet's a little bit of an enigma in this location, and it seems to be, it might be one of the older ones, but it's always acted a little bit differently. It's always treated a little bit differently. Like they don't really know what to do with it. It's kind of just put in the corner and, oh yeah, we figured out the music box can shut it down, so we've wired that up.
Okay. Do you think, how much stock do you put in the children's drawings in FNAF 2?
I was looking at these earlier, and it's really interesting because we've got imagery of Golden Freddy. We've got imagery of the characters, which some people argue is like definitely the Withereds. Like you've got the characters that look like they've got the big scary faces, and Chica looks like she's got the big unhinged jaw. And some people use that to say that like there was 2 openings of the FNAF 2 location, or the Withers were used for a week. The idea at first. I don't believe it personally. If I was just going, no, they're just drawings from the new place, the kids just drew them and because kids are bad at drawing, they make them look creepy because it's a horror game and we want the stuff to be unsettling that's on the walls. I think there could be an argument to say that the drawings could be from, because it is the new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. That's what like the title card of all the drawings say. I think you could argue that these have been like brought over from a previous location. That like it's just decoration, and they had all these from the last one, because there's no drawings that are very specifically, oh, this only could be Toy Chica. And we do see in FNAF 3 that there are Toy Chica specific drawings and Toy Bonnie specific drawings hung up there. So, you could say, oh, these are from an older location and that's why the puppet's drawn there. But also, it's like, yeah, the puppet is in operation here. So even if they are from this location, that doesn't mean that it has to only be, like it could just be drawings of the puppet from now. I don't see necessarily what they have to necessarily relate to. It's only showed up here, because they're all being drawn here. So if you drew Toy Bonnie specifically and it had the red cheeks and stuff, you wouldn't go. I don't know. It wouldn't seem to me like that's indicating the puppet is brand new because it's being drawn at the location it's active in.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of, yeah, so that's kind of the FNAF 2 stuff is how Ralph treats it. It's this creepy thing that he's never liked. It's always been there. We know that it's older than the FNAF 2 location because it's been paired with the classic animatronics. We know that it's at least being developed in 1979 with Murray's Costume Manor. So it doesn't seem like this has anything to do with it being only made as a result of the MCI or anything like that. So I don't see it necessarily having to be, it just showed up now for the first time. But then the biggest, like, to me, the bombshell stuff is in Henry's dialogue in Pizzeria Simulator, which I can go into now. So let me see. So the true ending of FFPS has Henry directly address his daughter, and he says, "It's time to rest for you and for those you have carried in your arms." So this line is paired with on-screen "give gifts, give life" imagery, which first of all relates Charlie carrying them in their arms, so doing something to help the kids, being related to what Charlie did in Give Gifts, Give Life. And it also confirms that minigame shows a possessed puppet. It's not, because I've even myself, in trying to understand, Charlie87, I was like, maybe it's like that's the marionette before it's possessed. Maybe that's like it acting on it's against the rules to be without a suit at Freddy Fazbear's or something. I was like, maybe that could be it. But like, we know that minigame is specifically being related to Charlie's actions. So Charlie is being related to Give Gift, Give Life. And something about that minigame I think that's good to note is that those are dead bodies. Like, they are not spirits as they're represented later. They are specifically slumped over dead bodies. And for her to be putting masks on those dead bodies before they are possessed themselves or before they're aware, I think it's like, okay, Charlie was possessed before any of them and was present when their dead bodies were present and like fresh. To me, anyway. I know some people think that it's something way more metaphorical and weird and about spirits and whatever. But to me, when I look at that, I'm like, those are dead bodies. She's there when they are dead bodies and does something with them that ends up with them as suits, So she has to be dead before the MCI. So unless you think the MCI happened at some other date, like if they died in 87, she has to have died before 1985. And to me, I think the other evidence lines up with 83 being her death. My next point. Is there anything you want to talk about on that specifically?
I have two things about that. The first would be, a lot of people's theory is that the between night cutscenes in FNAF 2, the dreams, that's where they're labeled in the files.
Yes.
That is Give Gifts, Give Life in a more realistic setting. That's sort of that's when Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Golden Freddy sort of come to life, and the puppet's there. If the MCI happened first and the bodies are just in the suits, Like if will stuff happens and
Yeah.
gives gifts, give life is just sort of a symbolic her letting them possess the animatronics, then they could have died before her. So do you have a
So
response to that?
this is my weird thing with give gifts, give life, in terms of what it could represent or what it does represent. To me, there has been no evidence since that one minigame. If we look at that one minigame as her, you know, making them possessed. If it's there's no physical thing happening, it's like a spiritual thing. There's no evidence anywhere else in the series that it's like required for one spirit to like entangle another spirit to an animatronic. Like it would be a very unique scenario where these kids did die, they did get stuffed into the suits or died in the suits, like in the Silver Eyes, and yet they had no possession for 2 years until Charlie showed up and then did something magic to make them come to life. And it's also a weird thing of like, well, why would she do that? Like, it's been so long after that. I can see it more of like a gut reaction of like, okay, I got to help these people that have just been hurt. I'm going to try and do something. And even if it is a magic, possession nonsense, that would be a response to their deaths rather than, oh, I just woke up and I'm dead. Oh, there's all these dead bodies. I'm going to like make them come to life as well somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I see that as less. I don't understand the mechanics of that or why that would be how it works, specifically with the MCI, when in every other case it seems to be kids die, get put in suits, or get scooped up by a claw, or die near an animatronic, and then just possess them naturally. I don't see why she has to be involved in their possession specifically, like from a mystical soul
Mm-hmm.
sense. I think that would be a weird rule to introduce purely about this one event for no reason.
How do you interpret the five keys Candy Cadet story from FNAF 6? Because I think a lot of people would use the five keys story and the scene in the fourth closet where the Mike, the dead kid, gives Carlton some of his remnant to heal him as sort of
Hmm.
being like, between those, we see that like the puppet has remnant, and so it sees that the bodies are in the suits, and it's like, whoop, I'm going to give you some of my magic, and now you're brought back to life, but sort of like it's a half life where you're possessing an animatronic instead of actually brought back to life.
Well, if that were the case, I think that would, if just say that's the interpretation, I struggle with that interpretation, but the idea of her being like, okay, I'm going to help these kids as much as I can, giving them some of my remnant or whatever it is and bringing them to life. That would be even weirder because that whole story is about how she can save one, but she ends up messing it up and doesn't save any of them. She brings with her the key to 5 deaths. So that would mean then that she could have resurrected one of the kids 2 years post mortem, but instead just made them all into ghost robots. So that to me would make less sense. I think if you still believe that she gives remnant and could have maybe like resurrected or healed one of them before they die, if that's your interpretation of that Candy Cadet story, it makes more sense for it to be done when they're dying or they've just died than it does to say they've been dead for 2 years and they've been rotting away stuffed inside these robots, and she shows up and is like could have potentially just resurrected one of them fully, which I don't
True.
see as making as much sense as, okay, they've just died, how can I help them, you know. um I that Candy Cadet story is weird. I would look at that more as a uh as something to do with a happiest day more so than to do with resurrection or physical healing. Again, it's a thing of, yeah, the Silver Eyes is weird, I suppose, with Michael being granted, or Michael granting Carlton his remnant. It's a weird thing, I suppose, in the games when we don't see that as much of a. It's not really brought up, this idea of just like, here's magic, come back to life. I get, you could argue that's what happened in this location, but I think that's more of a, the scooper has remnant on it, so Michael gets some of that, as opposed to somebody like choosing to give him something. Yeah, the key to 5 deaths. Yeah, it's interesting, but then it's a question of like, well, why would she have enough remnant to bring one of them back to life, but not the other four? And what did she do with her remnant? She gave her remnant to dead kids to put them in suits, but that just brought them enough. I don't know. It seems weird to me that the possession works in every other scenario except for the MCI, and then she has to step in to do this thing rather than that just happening naturally. And she's maybe more so involved on the other side of the spiritual moving on part of it. I think that would make more sense to me than randomly this one set of murders doesn't occur or doesn't result in a natural quote unquote possession.
Yeah, my I actually have like, I guess I disagree with just that part, because Elizabeth dies physically inside Baby. Charlie might not die until like the moment that the puppet lays on top of her. Crying Child's a big question mark, but always is. I think that Cassidy died while being spring locked. So the difference between, and William was obviously spring locked. So the difference between them and the MCI is that the MCI probably didn't die inside their suits. Their bodies were just in the suits after death. So they might need that
Well, that
extra
is,
push.
they do say in, I mean, in the Silver Eyes, the puppet doesn't exist, so you could
Mm-hmm.
argue that it's they had to do it in that timeline rather than in this timeline. But they do say in the Silver Eyes that the kids were killed in the suits, like,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's William is talking to Jessica, I think, and he's like, "Come on, you're smart, you can figure it out." And she's like, "Oh my god, you killed them in the suits!" And he goes, "Yes, clever girl." Um, so I mean, with Charlie, it's hard to tell. Like, was she like, was her heart beating, and then it just happened to die when the puppet was laying on top of her? I think if you can be dying slash dead in the alley, and the puppet can like lie down on top of you, I think having just been killed and then stuffed inside the robot, I feel like that's pretty much the same thing. I don't know. Um, it just I find it strange the idea that she would have to do anything mystical, like from a ghost point of view, to make sure that they come back to life. If anything, it would make more sense to me that she's doing a physical like a puppet stuffed kind of thing. I don't think that's the case, but that would make more sense to me if you said, no, well, she was the one that put them in the suits, and that's them to come to life. Which I think might have been the implication in FNAF 2. It's hard to tell. It's just so many years later. It would be weird if the idea in FNAF 2 was, oh, the puppet brought them to life with magic, that then he didn't do that again anywhere else, because then it would be he came up with that idea and years later he just didn't do anything with it. He never kind of made that a part of the magic system ever again. It was just in that one case in the beginning of when he was making these games.
That's fair. Um, the other the other big one is, how literally do you take Henry's speech in FNAF 6? Because as Mr. Everything's Diegetic Arcade Theory, when I see the
Hmm.
scene where he's like, oh, there's gives gifts, gives life, there's save him, Henry is actually showing us these images of these video games he created. For me, that gives a lot more leeway of those things being metaphorical. He's like, Henry's
Hmm.
like, I'm going to depict the events of the nightmares in FNAF 2 as a video game because I am Henry
Hmm.
Emily. So does that, I don't know, help or hurt your argument in any way?
I don't know if it changes it. I think because they have both images on screen and the images which kind of fade over on top of the like image, which I think are more memories or just like representative for the audience. So like when he does talk about Charlie saying, I knew you'd come back, you wouldn't give up, not my daughter, there's like an image of the puppet in the prize counter from
Yes.
2 which like fades up over the screen. But I think anything on the screen, I don't see there would be any reason of putting it directly on the little monitor if that weren't supposed to be something that Mike could see in universe, which
Yes.
would be a supportive argument for an arcade theory. And the fact as well that he in that little speech he also confirms that security puppet and save him are the same event. Like in case anyone was going to go,
Hmm.
there must have been 2 murders that happened outside with Henry pulling up in the car. He just has one come up on screen and then the next one come up on screen, and then he's when he's talking about the puppet. But in terms of this argument that I'm making about give gifts, give life being about Charlie, it doesn't change anything about her involvement or what he's saying about it. All I'm saying is that he's showing that that mini game, which involves her helping the MCI, that being related directly to Charlie and not just the puppet character, shows that she was possessed before anything happened with those dead bodies.
Yes. I do think that I personally think that it does make more sense. Not just because I think that the phone guy line about, I'd never liked it, I was always thinking, is good evidence, but to me the more compelling part is always that if the puppet is giving gifts, giving life, why would Scott confuse the story? Unless it's a retcon, why would Scott be like, the puppet did it, but it was out of order? Like, it was in a different order than the deaths,
Yeah.
but I'm still
Yeah.
depicting the same thing. Because my thing is always, and this goes back to, I'm going to say a triggering word, this goes back to will care. My thing always goes back to Scott is using 7 pixels to make a sprite in a dialogue free mini game that's abstractly
Yeah.
told to you if you die in the game. He has such
Yeah.
little opportunity to get across, he's such small depictions to get across big concepts. It needs to be simple. The more complex or vague the manner of getting the lore across is, the more simple the lore itself has to be. And so to me, the
Yeah.
idea that you're supposed to play Give Gifts, Give Life and go, oh, the puppet died after the others but came to life first and then put them in the
Mhm.
suits is like, I don't see where that is in the mini game. Whereas to me, I see the mini game as the puppet was first and then the other 4 and then Golden Freddy last, because that's what's literally in the game.
Yeah, it's a lot of the evidence of that kind of interpretation of her bringing them to life with Remnant, or with like showing them their bodies in the suits. I know that's based on one of the Fazbear Fright stories. Is it the Tales from the Beatsbox? Which is the story where the kid gets trapped in the chess
Um,
machine?
that's
the
Tails.
Yeah, in Tales. That story, I can't remember the name of it. The idea of showing somebody their body lets them lets them be kind of more aware as a ghost or whatever. All of that would require him to have this in mind for so many years and nobody getting it, and like that interpretation of a thing that came out so long ago seems to be a little bit strange to me, in terms of like, you don't communicate that at all in the game where that was supposed to be the case, and then only years and years later can you sort of backtrack your way into figuring out that. And I know this is FNAF, so we do that all the time, but that order, like you said, there's nothing in Give Gifts, Give Life that says the puppet died later but has now gotten the kids after the fact that they were dead. And like, if they wanted to do that, I feel like that would be a way too complicated way of trying to communicate that sort of information.
Yes.
So further in Henry's speech, or sorry, not the ending monologue, but the insanity ending
Mm-hmm.
speech, which is this is the smoking gun. In his insanity speech, Henry is discussing William's crimes. He's talking about his murders and his desecration of all of the victims. He's found new ways to desecrate, to humiliate. And he says specifically, like, the loss of innocence and so much to so many people, which to me reads as he's not just talking about the kids, he's talking about the families and the people that were hurt by this. The effect of William is not just on individuals, it's on groups of people, because he's harming more than just the individual kids. This is his whole speech is about that. He says he lured them back with familiar tricks. Are they still aware? I hope not. It keeps me awake at night. And then he talks about contemplating suicide, like, I could sleep, but not yet. And then he says it isn't an option until he heals this wound, i.e., the stuff that he's already been talking about. And then he says, a wound first inflicted on me. And again, based on, like, when you're writing something, when you're trying to communicate information, the context of that scene is really important, because he's speaking the whole time about victims of William, the effect he has on families, this wound that has been created that he helped inflict himself because he didn't do enough about William, or he helped him by creating Freddy's in the first place, etc., etc. And then to say a wound first inflicted on me, and for that wound to just be like the Fall Fest fire or something would be insane in terms of like Scott riding that. I don't, maybe he Scott cons it later, maybe. I don't see why he would do that. But in terms of the context of that scene, I really don't like listening to it just flat out. I don't see there any reason to interpret that a wound based on what he's been talking about, representative of victims and family suffering, to say that that wound is nothing to do with the death of his own child would be crazy. Unless it's something like the wound inflicted on him was the death of like Sammy or something, if Sammy's real in the games, that would be another thing, but we have no evidence for that. There's nothing in that game to characters related to Henry.
Mm-hmm.
He speaks directly to Charlie in that other ending. It's just that one line is, I think, the thing that somebody who believes Charlie87 really has to nail down and has to come up with some other better explanation that doesn't completely ignore the context of what he was just speaking about.
Yeah, and that full line is a wound first inflicted on me that I let bleed out and cause all of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
I think that there's two possible interpretations on what he means by the wound bleeding out. And I think a very compelling one is if Charlie hadn't died and Charlie hadn't possessed the puppet, she would not have given life to the other MCI kids. And thus their souls would not be tethered to Earth in these robots as opposed to moving on.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, oh no, by Charlie doing this, she's like sort of, unintentionally hurt these kids. And that wouldn't have happened if William hadn't done this first, and that wouldn't have happened if I had, like, turned William in. If he suspected him of killing Charlie, or if he had just never given him a spot in the company, or blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess another interpretation could always be, like, he did suspect William at the time, but thought, like, no, I can't blame my friend, there's no real evidence, and then by not speaking up, he caused the MCI to happen after. But either way...
That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Either way, the MCI would have to be after.
Yeah, because I would see that with the, like, if Charlie is the one that gave them life as animatronics, if she's the one that gave them the possession in the first place, I think it would be weird in his like true ending speech to compare give gifts, give life to her lifting others up in her arms, if he views that as his wound bleeding out. Like, oh, my daughter really messed up by making all these kids into robots. Like, I think he blames that and what he did to those kids and their possession. He even says, actually, in fairness, in that insanity speech, he says, I don't know how those small breaths came to inhabit those
that's
machines.
fair.
So he literally doesn't think, whatever give gifts of life is, if he made it, he doesn't think it's them coming to life as robots, because he says he doesn't know how it happened. So he doesn't think Charlie brought them to life.
Oh, that might be puppet stuff.
And he compares that to her.
That might be really, really good puppet stuff info then. If he's determining that if he made give gifts, give life, and if he's not saying that's how they came to possess the animatronics because he doesn't know how they did, that could be him saying the puppet physically put them in the mask. So that would be puppet stuff.
See, that's interesting, because I was going to say it would be the other way, the give gifts to life. If he made it, his intention as a like in-universe creator, as an in-universe, was not to show them coming to life as animatronics. Like, that she wasn't necessarily, because I feel like it would be weird if he was trying to imply that whatever that minigame is was caused by the puppet, but he also says that he doesn't know. Like, I feel like it'd be up the fact that she brought them to life if he doesn't know what happened, because he thinks whatever give gifts life is was her helping the kids, but he also thinks that the kids being in robots is bad. So I don't think he would attribute that to her if he thinks it's a bad thing, but he also thinks that minigame is representative of a positive outcome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is it could just be that she physically put the bodies inside of the suits, and that is
Hmm.
all that give gifts, give life is saying. But no, but then it wouldn't be called give gifts, give life.
Yeah, it
Hmm.
wouldn't be called Give Life if it
Hmm.
wasn't about them coming to life in some way. Which is why I also think it wouldn't be her using remnant magic if he says he doesn't know how it happened. Like whatever give gifts live life is, I think with the combination of him saying it's her lifting them up in their arms and him saying he doesn't know how they came to be like that means that whatever gift gives give life is not about them being brought to life. I know
How?
that sounds weird because it's give
Yeah.
life, but whatever but what I'm saying is we need then a new interpretation of what that minigame is if it's not anything to do with being brought to life as robots.
He also he knows what remnant is by the time of FNAF 6, and
Yes.
he knows that burning everything will get rid of it. So to say sorry, what was the exact line about
Let me get it now.
about the soul? Like I like not knowing how I don't know how the souls came to inhabit those machines. Um, but if he knows how remnant works, and he knows that the puppet lifted them into her arms, then what doesn't he know? Unless it's just molten MCI. Hmm.
Well, so yeah, because he says So okay, again, in fairness of talking about context, what he says is he overpowered them again. He robbed them. The only thing they had again. I don't know how those tiny breaths of life came to inhabit those machines, but they will never find rest now. Not like this. Ah, okay. So that's actually
That's
saying more so that I don't know how they became Molten Freddy. I guess, but he
yeah.
should know because he has the Scooper blueprints.
Huh.
Because he seems to know what happened though, because he says that he lured them all back with familiar tricks. He brought them all together. Are they still aware?
I hope not.
Um, yeah. So I
Hmm.
guess what he's saying is, I know that William did something to make them into these like possessed robots. I don't know how, but they're not going to find rest like this. You know, I know vaguely that Remnant is a thing or whatever. I don't know necessarily the mechanics behind it. I get, but he should know because he's got the Scooper blueprints. He should know what that's about.
Yeah, and the insanity ending is where you see those blueprints.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah,
they're physically on. He's like, I don't know how they came to be, in those suits, and then flashing on screen is a
yeah.
scooper that says, "And this is how you make a robot get possessed." Hmm.
You know what's interesting though? And I only noticed this today. The second that he says he lured them all back, the screen changes to show the Lefty blueprints, which the first letter of Lefty
Yup.
is lure, which is very interesting because I'm like, is that implying that either William made uh Lefty, which I don't think is the case because I think if it's After Robotics, William made it. If it's Fazbear, Henry made it.
Mhm.
But then is it like he took inspiration from what William did to capture Charlie? Is that the idea? It's just interesting the word lore. The first second he says lore, it cuts to the lore,
Well,
encapsulate, fuse, transfer, extract.
so if he lured them back with familiar tricks, right? That
Mm.
would be follow me,
Shadow Freddy.
right? Shadow
Yeah.
Freddy. Lefty's a black bear, so
Yeah,
he's
I did. For a second,
yeah.
I was like, is Lefty Shadow Freddy
I don't think
in that
so,
minigame?
but it could be
Is he
to
Scott Conning it?
it could be to make us link those two things, where he's like,
Yeah.
he lured them back because I think one of his lines is even like, I don't know how he. I wish I had the speech in front of me. He
Yeah,
says, I don't know
he
how
set a
he did
trap.
it.
I have it here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You read
Let
it.
me see. He set some kind of trap. I don't know what it was, but he led them there again, which is definitely follow me
Hmm.
because he's leading them to the safe room.
Yeah, so I don't know what the trap is, but it was the same as the first one he used. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is, but I do
So
know what it is.
So I'd assume that wasn't Lefty, uh, because of it. What? But then the security puppet is made by After Robotics. So is that saying that William made the made the puppet and not Henry?
The security puppet is?
Yeah, because it's got the Funtime faceplates and it's in the sister
Oh.
location bunker in UCN.
Hmm. Yeah, the security
Like I
puppet,
think
the
that's a Funtime security puppet,
the
the one
one
you can
that's
buy.
physically in your FNAF 6 location, right? Which looks very
Yeah,
different from the real puppet. Um,
yeah,
huh, that is weird.
that's definitely an Afton Robotics creation. like 100%.
Yeah,
Like that's got the Funtime faceplates. Yeah, did he make the original?
which might Fiona made the original.
Oh,
It might be, if that's an Afton Robotics creation, it might have like Scoop Remnant in it. So Midnight Motorist and Fruity Maze are physical video games. So when you play them, you're playing a video game. Security Puppet is just a puppet sticking its head out of a box that for some reason when you interact with it, now you're in a video game.
Yeah.
So if William made
is it an arcade game?
yeah, it might have. I think in the FNAF 6 Tycoon section, it's a security system. Like it actually is the security puppet.
It's got an entertainment of 7 and a security of like 9. So
Yeah.
it's like, and it's not dangerous at all. That's one thing. It doesn't have any risk factor with installing it.
So I don't think it's a video game, but by interacting with it now you play a video game. So it might have Scoop Remnant on it, which would be interesting. We do have a super chat.
Yeah.
Ace Ventura, PhD. If the puppet is giving gifts, why is Golden Freddy the exception? I would say that Golden Freddy died in Springlock suit. And then William used Golden Freddy suit to lure them back. That's the familiar trick. So Shadow Freddy looks to them like Golden Freddy is what you're saying?
Well, I'm wondering if he's already Scott Conning Follow Me to be about Molten MCI, is he Scott Conning Shadow Freddy to be Lefty? Like, is he just like, no, in Follow Me, it is Lefty. It's not Shadow Freddy at all. I don't think that's true, but it is just interesting to relate those two. And it is a black bear, like, in the dark. I don't know.
I have never once interpreted it this way, but this probably makes way more sense.
Okay.
Follow Me, the Shadow Freddy bear. William is physically in a suit. In that, William is wearing that, luring them to the back, takes off the suit and attacks them. Because there is a Shadow Freddy suit-looking thing as an Easter egg in FNAF 3. On the left side of the screen, sometimes you'll see a dark bear. I've always, maybe it's just because of Matt Pat, he's like, in the Twisted Ones, there's a projection of a Shadow Freddy that leads them to Freddy's. I've always thought it was a spirit projection. I never once thought that was actually William in a suit.
I considered it, but the problem is that when you go into the safe room, that the Freddy suit isn't there.
True.
Like, I think if it, like, the only suit in there is, but then again, it's on a night where you don't get lured.
Yeah, because
so you could say that
you're the ghost.
Put Golden Freddy somewhere else.
And if it's Golden Freddy and the fifth child is either Cassidy or Crying Child, maybe he's like, I'm going to take off the suit, put it over here. Or, like, he disassembled that one last, and that's what freed the fifth spirit. Like, he's like...
hang on. Yeah, because that actually makes sense. Oh, okay. Yeah. So then, if he was wearing Golden Freddy, and then in the last minigame we play as the Golden Freddy spirit, presumably, who is now free, that implies that whatever suit they were was already disassembled, which would be why it's not in the game.
Yeah, why it's not in the back room anymore, yeah.
Yeah. But then why wouldn't it be on the floor or anything, like, because all the other pieces are... It's weird. Because whatever it is, you have to assume whatever Shadow Freddy is was under the influence of William, because I know Henry's assuming things because he said he doesn't know what happened, but, like, why else would Afton be in the building if not to do that? Like, he seems prepared for the robots to come and find him. So either Shadow Freddy is under his control, or it is him wearing Golden Freddy and he looks purple. But then you'd ask, why didn't he just wear Spring Bonnie? Because he said he lured them back with familiar tricks. And he has Spring Bonnie right there. I guess it would be because it's broken down?
I mean, if Withered Golden Freddy's any indication, it's also, like, a broken down old suit.
That to me would be MCI 87 evidence, because the Golden Freddy one is seemingly used in the FNAF 2 location. Yeah. Oh, boy.
Yeah. I've never
but then
liked...
the FNAF 3 tapes say it's Spring Bonnie, so I don't know.
I've never liked the Shadow Freddy is an entity the way that Shadow Bonnie is an entity, and William can, like, command it to go forth and do his bidding. I've never liked that interpretation. Yeah, but if it is a suit, how would Scott be like, okay, so you know in FNAF 2 how there's this, like, purple Golden Freddy suit that's a glitch and crashes the game? Well, what if in the next game it's a physical suit? In one game it's an apparition, in the next game it's real, and you guys just have to figure that out. That would
And then it can
be
also just appear in the
unlikely.
office.
And it can be in the office. And Nightmare
Yeah.
in UCN says, "I'm your wickedness made of flesh," which to me makes it seem like it was not real before UCN. It was always just a projection.
Hmm.
I don't know.
I guess it's showing up in FNAF 3 in the office would imply that it's like followed William here. You know,
Yeah, but like
like
it's like teleporting because like it's not always there. So is it real? Is it a
yeah, but that's what I
projection? Does it
mean.
move?
It's a projection. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's not like William's like go forth and bring the kids to me, but maybe it's working on his will. Will William Afton? You know, like it's more like his desires command Shadow Freddy, I
But
guess. I don't
it
know.
it would be the only time in the franchise that something like that happens, and William never uses that power
Yeah.
again. Yeah,
Yeah, very true.
it's such a weird thing. We have Ace Ventura again with a super chat. Golden Freddy Kid is the only one without a suit in Follow Me. Purple equals shadows, correct. Ghosts in the books are lost until they find their bodies. The puppet led them. Yeah, so
Is it safer?
Shadow Freddy in Follow Me could absolutely be Golden Freddy. It's only the purplish color because it's in the darkness. I totally agree with that. Um, Ghosts in
Hmm.
the books are lost until they find their bodies. Puppet led them. Puppet led them to the back room. Puppet led them to their bodies
To their
in Give Gifts,
bodies.
Give Life. You don't need to send a super chat. I'll look at the chat if you want to clarify what that means. Um, but yeah,
Hmm.
no, my neurons have been activated by this whole Shadow Freddy might be a physical suit
Yeah.
thing. I'm thinking it. I'm thinking it.
Hmm. I think he's following William around. Notice he's not in the FNAF 1 location until Follow Me. He appears in the FNAF 2 location and Fazbear's Fright, both places Williams have been. Yeah, so he's and I mean if you think the bunker is experiment chambers that he would be also there. So he'd be following William in that sense. And I'm your oh yeah. So no, okay, I think it might actually be that it is a I am your wickedness made of flesh. It's William's desires have manifested Shadow Freddy. I'm your literally your wickedness made of flesh. Like I'm literally your bad intentions brought to life.
Paykiller says, "Is it possible Shadow Freddy is not helping William?" Yes, because I reject William having a psychic projection ability. I've always said that like Shadow Freddy knows that it'll actually help the spirits if they're freed, so he's doing it for that reason. So yes, 100% possible, but that any implication you draw from that requires so much headcanon, so much fan fiction that I don't find any of them particularly satisfying.
You know what's interesting? If the reason it looks like Golden Freddy is because the whole like well, it depends on if you think Charlie died before Bite Victim. See, this is the thing. I keep going back and forth on who died if Charlie died first
Mm-hmm.
or Bite Victim died first because I'm like, oh well, if he's doing everything to put his son back together, then it would be
Yes,
represented
yes.
by the thing that is driving his wickedness. But you could argue that's what Nightmare on then is as well, because they both is like Nightmare on is that, but for Charlie, and then
But
Shadow Freddy is that, but for Bite Victim.
Nightmare Own's not canon in FNAF 4 because Charlie's not dead yet. Because Bite Victim died first. Hmm.
Or yeah,
Hmm.
maybe. Or well, I'm the fearful reflection of what you have created. Oh, William did make the security puppet. I am the fearful
Oh.
reflection of what you have created.
Hmm. Yeah, some of those UCN lines, I mean, they go hard. They're pretty cool.
They do.
And I think some of them are really on the nose. You know,
Yeah.
we know who our friends are, and you are not one of them. It's like,
Yes.
oh, that means that the plush was William speaking, and like we can stop
Yes.
talking about
Yeah.
that, please. Um,
Yeah.
but
Well,
then
that
some of
game
them,
hammers that home hard.
yes, tomorrow is another day. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
some of them, I am your wickedness made of flesh. What does that mean? What are you saying? Also, this time there's more than an allusion to fear. So illusion discs are canon, but then also never expounded on. But then it's gas. But then it's blah blah.
Yeah.
Like, what's that mean?
Whatever illusion can be anything. I know it's a word, obviously discs, so that would make us think discs, but it could just be illusion, like any sort of illusory thing that it's not real. They were never an actual physical robot. But it's weird because it's the one robot that's not accounted for on the sister location. So to say this time is more than an allusion to fear would imply that it was part of the experiments, even though it's the only one on the sister location map that's missing, because they have Bonnie, Chica,
Mhm.
Freddy, and Foxy, but they don't have Fredbear. So it's like, oh, what are you doing?
Hmm. Yeah, this follow me. I don't know. Follow all of the mini games except for Elizabeth dying, which I think is very straightforward. But all of the mini games have so many layers of interpretation that I
Yeah.
wish. It's not that I wish Scott would just like clarify them, right? Because speculating is obviously part of the fun. But I wish he
Yeah.
would see discussions like this and either
Yes.
say, "Oops, my grave order thing was, it answered it. I intended it to mean this, but people took it as
Yeah.
that, so I should clarify in the next game." Or say, "I meant it to mean this, only some people got it, so I should double." If Charlie 87 is true because of the grave order, not enough
Mhm.
people got it, and I think that he should clarify. If Charlie 87 has
Yeah.
nothing to do
Still
with the
clarify
grave
more.
order, then we got the wrong message from the grave order, and he needs to clarify more anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe part of that you could argue is the puppet blueprints being in Secret of the Mimic is to show like this was being developed alongside the Freddy's game. Like this is not a later invention. Like this was created early. So it's not Charlie necessarily, but it's like the robot was back there. Like, you can't really do much about Charlie dying because it's set in 1979. But you could say, okay, well, the fact that the puppet is existing that early is kind of hinting that, well, why would you show us that if not to be like, it's there from a very early stage, so it could have happened earlier. Like, if she's not important till later on, there's no real reason. Key jangling, oh, look, it's the puppet. That's why FNAF having
Mhm.
the 87 dice after the Grave Order is so important. It was the clarification. That's
But
fair.
yes, if uh, if I thought that believing Falaf was a reasonable thing, which at the moment I don't, but maybe when the game comes out, it'll change my tune. There's so many theories right now that for me rely on 5 laps at Freddy's, which I also don't think Scott ever intended. For him to be like, guys, don't worry, I'll solve the lore from 10 years ago. Play the cart game.
Hmm.
Play the
Yeah,
racing
I mean,
game.
like you could even say like, okay, well, is it important that in 5 laps of the kids that are standing outside of juniors are the ones from Happiest Day? Is that important, or is that just like a fun Easter egg? You know?
Mhm. Yeah, it's just iconography from across the
Yeah.
series. Yeah.
Um.
Mhm. All right. If you don't have, do you have more 83 stuff?
That that was my main stuff. Was all about was specifically about Henry's speech and the context
Yep.
of that speech being about the impact of William's murders on families, and then he says, "Well, this wound was inflicted on me first."
Yes, but he does say in the real ending that the agony can, what was the last line? Can start to fade or
Oh,
whatever.
agony of every tragedy
Mm.
can fade as all tragedy should, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if he's talking about like the parents of the MCI victims, they
Hmm.
do not know that their children are not in heaven. They do not
Hmm.
know what is happening. So why would this cause them? Why would this give them closure and allow the memory to fade? If his whole sentence is about everything William has done, including the agony done to the parents of the MCI victims, which is why it's a wound first inflicted on him, why would this fire give solace to those parents? Unless you're saying that
Well,
because
I
it's
suppose
it's
they're
different context because it's the two different speeches.
yeah, it's two different speeches. They're two different contexts. I would say that then, if the interpretation is that he's purely speaking about the MCI, then there's nothing that could have happened to him personally that would relate to that same message. Like unless we're like William is secretly an animatronic in the back room, like he's also been killed and stuffed into something, and we just don't know it. Um, then I think that would confuse the message if because either way, then you're mixing two different whether it's he's talking about the families or he's talking about the MCI kids. If he's talking only purely about the MCI kids in both speeches, then he has no wound to have inflicted on him. But if he's talking about victims in one and families in the other, and the one about families, he's talking about something that happened to him, I think that's more relevant than trying to make the two be exactly one-to-one with each other.
What do you think HRY223 means?
I think it's just some numbers.
Okay, that's fair. Me too.
Just some numbers. Ace Ventura 87. Oh yeah, so this is actually something I wanted to bring up as like I'm obviously not helping my argument, but something I was thinking about the other day. Ace Ventura just said it there. I will repeat until my dying breath. 87 is the only time Freddy cared about the security puppet wasn't a thing until FNAF 2. So this is a good point because I was thinking about it the other day. The fact it is a security puppet is kind of important because what you can then say is like, yeah, the entire thing about FNAF 2 was that all the robots were made as a security measure. So the fact that the puppet is being revealed to be a security thing should indicate that like, oh, well, that means then that like it was one of the upgraded things. Like it was given security privileges because it's like a part of the security team, you know, of that whole building. I would argue that it's possible that the puppet is like the precursor to that. But I don't know. People can argue about that, but I do think it is a good 87 bonus point, you know, to say, well, it's part of the team of security bots. So yeah, the fact that it's a security bot should indicate that it's part of 87.
Mm-hmm. So okay, I have one more tangentially related topic because it is important to the Charlie 87 discussion, less so the 83 discussion. And I might end up making this its own sort of future episode because there's very drastic differences in people's opinions on the topic. What do you think the DCI is if it exists?
Oh boy. So I was rewatching the minigames earlier in preparation for the stream. And I think I always go back and forth on whether or not it's a real thing or a misinterpretation. But something I think is interesting is that the save them being the wording chosen is important because the word save is only used in one of those other minigames, which save him, which is the puppet minigame. And so the idea of saving somebody, whereas in give life, it's helping, it's help them that's spoken in the background. Save them seems to be a preventative measure, like obviously because it's saved them from dying. But when you have one minigame where save him is a kid is about to die, stop it from happening, and then there's another minigame, save them, where there's a bunch of dead bodies around and we're told you can't. It's like, I think it would be weird to use the wording save in both if they meant different things. Like if the DCI was the MCI bodies having been taken out or put around or whatever, it's like, oh, save them. You can't because they've already been dead for 2 years. I think it would be weird to mix up those wordings. So I think purely looking at the context of FNAF 2, it makes the most sense to say it's another set of murders, that there is more dead people. My issue with that is the whole, like, they're never ever brought up again. They're never important after that point. And sure, you can argue that there might be other victims in this which are also unimportant, but there's just something that doesn't sit right with me about that having such an impact in purely one game and one game alone and not being relevant whatsoever at all past that point, and never even like being referenced as like, oh yeah, William had so many different victims and whatever. And you know, the question then becomes like, where did they go? Is it left to DCI or whatever? You know, like, I don't know. It's I was toying around with the idea that like Golden Freddy has something to do with Save Them because of if the MCI happened in 85 and Scott was 100% certain about that when he made 2, which I think he might have been based on Foxy Go Go Go, then the characters in universe would be afraid of the MCI happening again. And so when the golden suit in the back starts moving on its own or has moved, they go, "Oh no, the guy came back and he killed again. He just used this." And it's a misinterpretation of events that maybe Golden Freddy did and started moving around on its own and killed people because William was about, or something of that measure, and then God victimed his way into Bite of 87. Uh, but yeah, it's really weird because it's purely the fact that they're just not brought up again. I think within the game, I think it's totally fair to just say, yeah, more kids died, and then just leave it there. It's just the wider context of the series. It becomes very strange to imagine that this event had absolutely no impact whatsoever.
Yes, so this is not the first time where we've looked at me and you specifically looked at the exact same piece of information. You're talking, and then you're about to finish your sentence, and I'm like, yeah, he's about to say this, and then you say the complete opposite. I think
Okay.
that the save him, right? That the
Mhm.
Charlie is outside about to die. Save him, because he's still alive and you physically can. I think in save them, right? It's save them. You can't because they were dead the whole time. It's not that
They're already dead.
yeah, it's not that in the beginning of the mini game you can and at the end you can't. It's the whole time you sort of now recontextualized it
Mm,
and you never could have because they've been
yeah.
dead.
I
Um,
just wonder what the puppet's thinking. If it's the puppet speaking, save that. Do you think it's because it's the only mini game where there is no speak and spell is the MCI? Um,
Foxy Go Go Go.
the yeah,
Yeah.
the puppet is present in all the other ones. Um, so I guess you could use that for 87 evidence as well. Uh, but I just wonder if that is like the puppet speaking or it's somehow related to the puppet. What they think is happening. Like, do they think more kids are being killed? Like, what is they like? What are they taking Golden? What are they taking Withered Freddy to do?
Assuming that the puppet is the one saying save them.
Yeah, or that it's related
Yep.
somehow to the puppet, or because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the puppet is the one leading you out of, so you can assume that it's taking Withered Freddy somewhere to do
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah, I think that the puppet is almost certainly not the one saying save him, and so I would not think the puppet's the one saying save them, and the puppet wouldn't be telling itself to help them. So I just don't think that the speak and spell voice is the puppet.
Sure. I mean, you could argue that Security Puppet kind of recontextualizes that the puppet was there, and that was its like goal was to save Charlie. So save him would be communicated by the puppet. Um, but I know what you mean in terms of it's not super spot on. So you think it's more of just like a meta thing. The game is telling you, "Oh, go save people," and then you realize, "Oh, you can't because they're all dead already."
Yeah, it would be very, and it's all anachronistic, but it would be like you're playing a video game and it's giving you the instructions, and so it's
Yeah,
a very primitive text to speech is telling you
yeah.
what you're supposed to do in the game. You're supposed to help them. You're supposed to save them. You're supposed to save him. Um, the Withered Circle just put out a DCI video because he's very pro DCI, where
Hmm.
the name of the dead bodies in the Save Them minigame are
It's
all
you can't.
called
Yeah.
You Can't, which to
Hmm.
me, if Scott meant for us to find that and to like say, oh, what does this mean? To me, it means that at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of that mini game, you already couldn't. The you can'ts were already out there. The bodies are
Yeah,
already dead.
yeah.
No matter what, there's nothing you could do. It's futile to save them.
I mean, it's weird as well because the those sprites of Chica and Withered Bonnie are called Dead Chica and Dead Bonnie,
Mhm.
which is weird. I don't see anyone kind of bring that up. One thing I will say, in like supportive, if you want to go with like the MCI bodies idea, is that they are slumped in the same way. Like the bodies have the same positioning as Chica and Bonnie. Like they have the like legs out front,
Mhm.
the curled overhead, which you could say is like, oh, they're like visually paralleling the two. Um, I just in that game, it feels weird with like I always argue it's the rug pull game where everything you think that it is ends up not being the case. You know,
Yeah.
like, oh, you think it's a
87.
prequel? No, or you think it's a sequel? No, it's a prequel. You know, blah 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 blah. blah. It's just there's so much about this investigation, people going missing, da 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 da. Then we have the only minigame seems to take place in that location, and it's like very specifically that location has a bunch of dead bodies around. Um, and it's just so strange to me if that's communicating. Ah, yes, the killer came back, took the bodies out of the suits, left them around the building for some reason, and then left or quit his job. Like I don't know what the timeline is in that, or like what he was trying to communicate at that time. And even considering he was going to leave the series off in 3, and then he was going to leave it off in 4, or he said he did anyway. He said that's what he was planning. Like what that event is supposed to be communicating, if not something to do with another set of kids or something. If Gift of Life wasn't in it, I'd just say that the newspaper at the end, the paycheck was just wrong, and it was. But Give
Oh
Gift
my
or
gosh.
Foxy Go 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 is the one thing that you're like, well, Foxy wasn't active at this location, so it had to have been the previous location where these kids died. Unless it's a metaphor, unless it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, even with the DCI, which I 100% admit is the more the less assumptions, the easier to like that is what this is saying. It is saying that there are more bodies, there is whatever. Why are they scattered all over the restaurant? Why are the blood puddles not lined up with the bodies? Why are there 6 blood puddles and 5 bodies? Um,
Why
why?
is one of the blood puddles in the puppet box?
Yeah, like if the blood puddles aren't symbolic, because or if the blood puddles aren't symbolic, why are they in the wrong spot? If the blood puddles are symbolic, what else could be symbolic? Could it be everything? And if it is everything, then you can get vastly different interpretations, which is how I use it. And then, of course, Golden Freddy's active on that night, teleporting around.
Yeah.
And Mangle is walking on his own. Why? I don't know.
Yeah, he was here.
He was
So
here,
weird.
walking around.
Yeah. I mean, that I suppose would be some DCI evidence because it's in the same room as one of the bodies, and it's like he was here, he killed this guy. Like whether it's I'm the kid in the corner that's dead, or he was in this room and I saw him kill that person that's over there. I had a fun idea once that if there was like a Casa DCI situation going on, or some sort of spring locking of Golden Freddy, that Golden Freddy teleporting around would leave different blood puddles in different places.
Like he's actively bleeding out, and so as he wildly
Yes.
teleports like an Enderman, he's
Yes.
leaving the blood behind.
Yes. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. Uh,
Don't hate that. I don't hate that.
yeah. It's also frustrating that the dead kids models are also different in each minigame, so it's hard to say like scale wise if the ones in Save Them are supposed to be kids,
Yeah, and
or if
Scott
like
obviously didn't care. Pink guy. Scott consistency between minigames doesn't
oh
matter.
man,
Scott's like,
yeah.
and now this one is just a totally wrong color.
Yeah, it's yeah, I mean like I had an idea because you kind of again you're getting that whole if you want to go for the rug pull, the most obvious answer is that William was the first guard and killed a bunch of kids and then went running because the investigation was going on. But like your rug pull would be, no, that wasn't William. That was just another guy they thought was dressed up as night guard, so that's why he looks different because he's visually whatever. But like then it just gets into a whole like, well, then what are we taking as important and not important and whatever.
Yeah, I do think that Scott, if Scott had never said, I like to clear up things in the next game, then I would be a lot more open to the DCI just being an abandoned plot point. But I
Yeah,
think if Scott thought that we were wrong, he would have addressed it. And I think that by him doubling, tripling, then quadrupling and eventually, octupling down on the MCI are all of them, including the fun times. That's him saying, like, there is no DCI. It's all the MCI. It's just these 5 kids. They're in everything. They're in literally everything else.
Yeah, so that's how I look at it. I'm like, it'd be really weird if he put such importance on the M. See, I guess you could say that, like, well, Scott looks at it as the MCI are the robots that we follow. Like, they're the robots that stick around. The toys get scrapped. That's what happens to the toys. Is they're only there for one location, and then they get rid of them. Like, they get melted down or whatever. So their spirits are fine. They're free, and we don't worry about them anymore because the robots aren't here. But because the MCI become the FNAF 1 robots, that's why they're important, because they persist further on. And the DCI, we don't worry about them because the toys just scrapped them. And the fact that they're scrapped is the reason that we don't hear about them, because the robots don't exist anymore. So the kids are presumably moved on. But then it's like, well, Follow Me shows them getting broken down. So wouldn't that free them? But no, actually, because Molten MCI, I don't know.
Mm. And then even, like, okay, if we see a mini game in FNAF 2, not any other game, FNAF 2 is when we see the classics getting animated, either through Give Gifts, Give Life, or the Between Night Dream cutscenes. We have 2 showings of the MCI possessing the classics, and 0 showings of the toys getting animated by the DCI. And then further in the timeline, there's the 5 key Candy Cadet story. Even if the DCI never mattered, I would think that they would be addressed in FNAF 6. And as a lefty DCI denier, I think Scott would have done it then, and I think that he did not.
Yeah, if Lefty DCI was his way of addressing them, it's very, very subtle and very out of the way to kind of, for this wrap up of the whole series. Like, the way Henry treats it, these are the only, I've got everyone. Like, I put everyone back, in the one spot, and then I'm going to get rid of it all. So to have 0 toys references, like the only toys reference that I can think of post 2 is in FNAF 3 when they're in the box, sitting on the floor. Like, obviously you've got the mini toy Chica missing her beak and whatever, but I mean, it is in on screen, not help wanted stuff. It's like they're in that box in the corner, and that's it. Like,
And then
they've got
burn.
the Phantoms, I guess, as well. You've got Phantom Mangle and Phantom Balloon Boy, depending on what you think the Phantoms are. If you think they're real, or a memory, or a projection, or a Springtrap ghost power.
Yeah, like, FNAF 6 is the game where Scott has Elizabeth say, "I will make you proud, Daddy," and then has Henry call her Elizabeth, and then has Henry say, "Not my daughter," while right in front of our faces is an image of the puppet showing Save Them and the real puppet, showing Save Him and the security puppet, right? Like, Scott is just saying, this is the plot of the game. I'm spelling it out for you. I'm showing you images of past games. I'm having Henry give you names.
Yeah.
If in that same game where he just said, "Guys, this is what's happening," Lefty DCI was also the intention, then he's a terrible writer.
It would be crazy. I mean, he is the best writer on earth, so we can't even consider that for a second. Yeah, it is. It's. So I'm trying to think, like, what the idea is even behind the DCI as, like, a function. Is it just like, if it is the case, is it purely so that he can have all the toys? Like, the only reason there is more murders is so that he can have more creepy robots, hanging around.
But then later he used, molten MCI. He's like, "No, you can just split the souls. Like, that's fine."
Yeah.
So, like, later when he wanted there to be more new robots, he found a reason in lore to make it happen. So if he had wanted to do that sooner, he just could have. Or if you look at the teasers to the games, which imply that the what was it? It's a teaser with the 2 Bonnies saying, like, something borrowed, something blue. And then they say that they keep the Wizards around to fix up the toys. So, like, if Scott always had some sort of remnant souls are in the machines, and thus if you take out one part, it still passes on the possession to the other parts. He could have always intended that the toys are only brought to life because they're being fixed with the parts from the classics. So, like, either way, it could have been what he intended from the start.
There's something borrowed, something blue thing, because it's something borrowed, something new, something blue, or something, whatever.
Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue.
Yeah, that is obviously a reference to, like, marriage, and I know, like, dual process theory brought that up as, like, why is it like a marriage thing? Like, I know it's...
Because Bonnie's blue.
It's just
That's it.
It rhymes, yeah, because he's blue. But you could say, like, a marriage is a joining of two souls. So you could have,
it's
like,
a what?
an interesting thing there. It's a... So you could have a thing of, like, it's the soul being put into two different bodies. I don't know. But then other people would say, well, it's two souls becoming one, so then it would be a different death, you know. With his circles in chat, he's gonna tweak.
Sorry, buddy. We can do
questioning.
we can do a full both perspectives on the DCI series at some other point, because I know there's a lot of stuff he wants to talk about that.
Yeah,
Nut says, I thought it says new, not blue. The saying is something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. What does the teaser itself actually say?
Something borrowed, something new.
Oh, that's interesting. So
something borrowed, something new.
Something borrowed, something new.
Withered.
So they borrowed Withered Bonnie from the previous location, and Toy Bonnie is new? Is like the direct interpretation of that?
Yeah.
Huh. Either way, whether or not the DCI happened, I think that it has nothing to do with Charlie.
Yeah, so this is the thing. Like, I know we spoke about this a little bit just in DMs, but there's the line about something going on out there that has nothing to do with the company. And I know that the interpretation for Charlie87 is like, well, he says out there, and then the only thing we see in game is about being, like, outside of the building is when Charlie gets murdered. But I find it a little bit of a stretch to say, like, out there, meaning, like, literally 2 feet outside the door. Like,
the thing that happened in our alleyway with the child who was found with our animatronic lying on top of her has nothing to do with our establishment.
Yeah, and, like, you could argue that's what Fazbear does, is they deny, connections. But it's just the wording of something out there, whatever's happening out there, to me more seems like there's stuff going on in town which is being attributed to Freddy's. Like, it's being linked, probably because there was already another set of murders, so they're going, oh, it's happening again. Whatever's going on out there, people are talking in town about something going on, their kids going missing or dying or whatever, and they're attributing it to Freddy's, but it's got nothing to do with us. Like, these things happen, people go missing, kids don't show up. Not like someone died right outside, like, yesterday, and it's got nothing to do with us.
Yep. That's why I have always wanted to call it the kidnapping children's incident, because I think that kids are going missing around town. People are saying, well, one time 5 kids went missing, and it was the FNAF man. It was the Freddy's bunny thing. So what if it's happening again? And they're like, well, what if it's just an unrelated serial killer? And it's not. But Phone Guy doesn't know that. And also, I just hate the name DCI, because they're all dead. The MCI, they're also dead. It's a stupid name.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, all the kids died. Yeah, I'm trying to look back at the FNAF 2 dialogue and see if there's anything that might jump out. I mean, I've looked at this dialogue like 100,000 times.
Yeah. Withered says, stop talking about maternal figures. What are you yapping about, Withered? So not only are the MCI kids dead, but the DCI kids are also missing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. Oh, another thing that I wanted to note about the whole out there thing is about the day guard. Because Ralph says, where is it? Oh yeah, I can personally assure you that whatever is going on out, it's all just rumor and speculation. So that's another thing. Rumor and speculation is like a kid dying outside your like on the front porch isn't like rumor. Like it's like that happened. You know,
Unless Ralph is
speculation.
lying, just straight up covering
He
for it.
could be straight up lying, but he gets pretty like overt later on when he finds out what happened. Like he's just like talking about what happened with the spare suit in the back. He doesn't seem to be the type, like he's doing the I know that sounds bad, like he's making excuses for the company, but I think genuinely, and based on the week before as well, I think that's more like Ralph is quite naive and is willing to put aside the kind of like in your face obvious stuff because he's like, no, like we're just a company for it's fun. Like, you know, I like the robots, they're cool. Like I work for this company that I used to like when I was younger. And then, you know, so all that stuff I've been told, like my boss told me not to worry about that. I'm just telling you can forget it, you know.
Mhm.
And then when he finds out what actually happened, he's horrified. Oh my god, some you know, the place is closed down. Somebody used one of the suits. We had like he's venting about it because he's so horrified. You know, he's just gotten the news about what actually happened, and he's just completely horrified about all the stuff that went on. He even says people trying to make a buck. You know, so like what what about Charlie's death is
Mm.
you know actionable against Freddy?
Well, selling
Um,
newspapers, I think, is the implication there. People
yes,
trying to make a buck, they
but
want to say missing kids tied to Freddy so that everyone picks it up from the newsstand
yeah,
because
but
it's
that's what I'm saying is
1987.
that makes sense if it's not Charlie.
Yes.
If it's Charlie died
Um
on the porch, you know, it's like, they're just trying to make a buck reporting this death that happened directly outside our building. You know, that feels a little
also,
bit.
and this could be a ScottCon, it might not be. Even if they're trying to argue that Charlie's death had nothing to do with their establishment because she died outside, she is still, in fact, the owner's daughter, which does have to do with the establishment no matter
Yeah.
what.
Yes. Yeah, and we get the CEO paper at the very end saying like, oh, these characters we're going to reopen a smaller location in the
Yep.
future.
Now, I
Um,
do not think the CEO is William or Henry at this point in the timeline, but
right. Okay. So you think Henry might?
the founder's daughter
Yes.
dying is still news.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. Um, Yeah, let me see. Yeah, because he says it's all just rumor and speculation. People trying to make a buck, you know. Our guard during the day has reported nothing unusual, and he's on watch from opening till close. That's not someone just died, and like, I guess it would be someone just died, and he's saying that no one else has showed up. Um, so like people are worried that more kids are gonna die. One just did, but I feel like that's more, you know, okay, kids are going missing. People are blaming Freddy's, and he's like, no, the guard during the day. He said there's nothing going on. Like he's all the kids are fine. The day guard is, you know, he's there. So that's the I don't know. I feel that's weirdly linking the Charlie one to that one line, and then again, like the later context fills it in a little bit more. Um, you could argue that he was the night guard that the week that Charlie died. So then the next week he's the day guard, so he doesn't report anything unusual. Because she would have had to die during the day,
Yes.
even though she kind of dies in like the late evening in Security Puppet because it's dark out.
Mm-hmm. So
But
he drives, if he's the night guard, because he is based on the paychecks, he's the first night guard.
yeah,
He is the night guard. He drives to his place of work before his shift starts, kills someone, speeds off, returns that
goes
night.
home.
That
He
night, or
goes
possibly
home
the
on the
next
highway.
night. Yeah, that night, or possibly the next night. The puppet becomes possessed and then gives life to the other animatronics, and then
Wait,
save them
yeah, hang
happens,
on.
and then William says, "Wait, save them just happened. I'm kind of scared. I want to be on the day shift now."
Wait, yeah, if Midnight Motorist is right after Charlie dies, then he would have work later
Yes,
that day.
midnight.
He'd have to go back, and it's midnight. He'd be in work. He'd be the night guard. So that kind of breaks it, right?
Not if there's 2 openings of FNAF 2.
Oh no.
Like, you'd have to have both of
The two
those.
openings. There's only three people that you're the second guard to work at that location. This is the third employee. So it's like, you know, unless they're only counting this location as this opening. The location was the same, but it closed during the summer and then it reopened now. And then there's so much I have so much problems with the second opening.
So Fazent is saying that he's the day guard at this point. So that means that I think the implication in FNAF 2 is that the reason that he switches from night to day is because the animatronics are attacking him. Like, they're more aggressive because of the DCI.
Well, I can not to be like, oh, I'm debunking it, but like they say in Ralph says on the first night that you're the only second guard to work at that location. The first guy finished this week complained about conditions. We switched him over to the day shift. And then he says, mainly he expressed concern that certain characters seem to move around at night and even attempt to get into his office. Then later on he says, so our temporary solution is this. There's a music box over by the prize counter and it's rigged to be wound up remotely. So just every once in a while switch over to the prize counter feed and wind it up for a few seconds. It doesn't seem to affect all of the animatronics, but it does affect one of them. Which means that when William was getting attacked, the puppet was one of them, if not the main one harassing. Because the main solution that he brings up is that they fix the puppet, so that Charlie had to be possessed, and the others had to be possessed the week before we worked there.
What?
Because William, the week a week prior, what? So the animatronics were possessed the week that he was the night guard, unless he just was the night guard for no reason and then switched to the day shift and killed somebody that week. Charlie dies week 1. He works night shift week 2. So there was no night guard on week 1.
And also, so in this might throw a lot of Charlie83 stuff out the window. Take Cake to the Kid / Save Him. You're playing as Freddy. You're not Withered Freddy, and you're not Toy Freddy. You're a full Unwithered / Classic Freddy. So how could that be at the FNAF 2 location?
In Take Cake, they say that's Toy Freddy. That's
Toy Freddy?
That is Toy Freddy.
Oh, no, they say it's Toy Freddy. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to get the newspapers. Yeah, after being open only for a few short weeks, I guess that could be 3 weeks.
Yes, it could be.
I just don't see why they wouldn't have a night guard the first week and then hire a new night guard to be there the day after it closes.
Yeah, especially if they have the toys and the security puppet.
Yeah, we should be paying them to guard you. Yeah, but they might have felt they didn't need to guard, but then what changed their minds if there was no possessions or anything?
Charlie's death, potentially. I also think it's I find it incredibly unlikely that Charlie is at the FNAF 2 location. The puppet exists basically just to protect her, right? Because that's what the bracelet's implying. But then, within a week, with all this stuff going down, Phone Guy's like, we need to find the owner of the original restaurant, Fredbear's Family Diner or something. Henry would have been at the FNAF 2 location within a week of FNAF 2 happening. So why do they need to go and track down the original owner of Fredbear's Family Diner if Phone Guy knows Henry's name and was just working with him and that's his buddy?
Well, because also the security puppet is made to specifically protect Charlie. It's not just a security. It's so implying that Henry had a hand in her protection specifically. So he would have been there in FNAF 2. But then if they're trying to track down the original owner, that wouldn't be Henry. And it's not a case of oh, well, his daughter was just killed, so we probably won't be able to reach him. It was closed for years though. So it's we haven't spoken to Henry or William or whoever they think is the original owner in a very long time.
And it might have even happened before Ralph's time. If the week before is canon, which I don't think it is, he was working there during the MCI, but not during Fredbear's, right?
Yes.
Because he overhears
it seems to be the
phone call. Yeah.
Yeah, I find it weird, the idea that they don't have a guard on the night shift. Then somebody dies during the day, so they decide to hire a night guard as well as a day guard. And then he switches over in the third week rather than the second week. Like, it just seems like a very weird... And, like, Henry had to have worked there to make the security puppet for Charlie, but he couldn't have been involved because they have to track him down at the end of the game and don't seem to know who he was.
Yeah, Fazant says they would have started. They would have hired the night guards because of Charlie's death.
Well, the building is like,
but it also we're hiring you because of Charlie's death. But it happened during the day, and also it has nothing to do with our establishment, and also it's out there. Like, I think for me, it goes back to what are the sort of obvious implications of what Scott is trying to tell us. And for me, the bear looking like classic Freddy and not Toy Freddy or Withered Freddy, and there always seemingly being a night guard, and Scott didn't have to tell us that Fritz was the third security guard. He didn't have to put that on the paycheck. He did. So we're supposed to figure out William 1, Jeremy 2, Fritz 3.
Yeah.
And I don't think he would have said, yes, I'm going to, he's putting his fingers together like Mr. Burns. He's like, yes, and then they'll figure out that there was a secret third entire week in which there was no security guard. Those fools will, of course, figure out that there's a 0th week to allow for an interpretation that the bear I designed to look like classic Freddy is actually Toy Freddy.
Yeah, you're only the second guard to work at that location. The first guy finished his week. So again, it's like, the first guy, but it was actually the second week that we opened. I feel like there'd be something, if that was the implication, if that's what to have. And again, it's not evidence one way or the other for me to be like, if Scott wanted this, then he should have done this. But like, to not mention that there's anything about like, oh yeah, we don't have any guards, but then we kind of thought maybe it might be useful or something. Like, I don't know. The idea that there's a secret 0 week that isn't important until it becomes really important is like, it's not communicated whatsoever in the game, only that you have to infer it if you want to believe that Charlie died in 87. Yep. It's an answer you have to create to explain something else rather than it being in the game and you find it and you go,
Rebel asks, Rebel says Charlie didn't die around midnight. There's kids there. So I agree with you, but the Charlie died around midnight argument comes from William kills Charlie, speeds off in his car, and then it's Midnight Motorist. So therefore, she dies. She dies close enough to midnight that by the time William gets home from Freddy's, it's midnight. So it can't be that.
Yeah, so it could have been like 11 p.m. Yeah. Like, it could have been open late, but I mean, like, we do see it is dark outside in FFPS. So it is supposed to be nighttime, or at least late evening, regardless.
Did she die in Fredbear's or Freddy's? I think it's pretty clear that it's a Freddy's. I know that Matt Pat said... I think he said it was a Freddy's and then he changed his mind. I don't remember. But I think it's pretty clearly a Freddy's because you're playing as Freddy, not Fredbear. In Take Cake. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, now we have all the weirdness of, like, there's a brown Fredbear with black accessories in Secret of the Mimic. So early Fredbear looked closer to Take Cake version. I mean, I think the fact that it's just Freddy wandering around giving out cake, like, we don't know enough about the inner workings, I suppose, of Freddy's, like, because I was going to say, oh, well, wouldn't Chica be the one giving it? But, you know, we don't know enough about how Freddy's works. Like, maybe that is Freddy's job, as he does go around and give out cake. But yeah, it's the single. I see the mini games are so weird that you can't be like, oh, it's only a small. Because I think that was Matt Pat's conclusion back in the day was
Yeah, the
the
room is
minigame is
small.
showing us it's a small place with only one animatronic, but like Foxy Go 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 is a two building. It's like a two room place with only Foxy there.
Yeah, and Fredbear's in FNAF 4 is huge.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Have you ever noticed how much the puppet and Freddy specifically are linked to in FNAF 2 with Take Cake and Save Them? Oh, that's kind of good. I like that.
So you're
Yeah, because then it would be the puppet. Save him. Freddy's looking on at the puppet. The puppet gets killed, and then save them. It's the puppet waking up Freddy to go help. That's kind of cool. I think it's important that Cake Bear is walking around serving during the day, which was as unique to 1987. This is a weird thing, right? In terms of the animatronics movement, because yes, I agree in FNAF 2, because they're setting it up for the Bite of 87, that like, oh, they let them walk around during the day is
cough cough.
But then in FNAF 3, the Springlock suits move towards sound when they're in animatronic mode. So they do walk around during the day. So that the other animatronics do that as well.
The suits walked around during the day from the conception of the company up until 87. I think that the phone guideline where he's like, they even walk around during the day was a cough cough to the audience. Like, that's hint number one, that this is a prequel. And then the big reveal at the end of the game is the paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Springlock
it doesn't make sense.
They're designed to be where the party is by following sound, and they're from the 83, so.
But they just walk up and perform according to FNAF 3, right? Like they just go to a room where people are. Yeah, but they don't say specifically in FNAF 2 that they serve food. He doesn't go, like, he just says they let them walk around. So we don't have anything to say that specifically the Springlocks do something that the toys do something the Springlocks don't. It says advanced mobility. They even let them walk around during the day. Isn't that neat? I agree that yeah, wink wink. This is a prequel. Or you can hear it for the first time thinking it's a sequel and go, oh, they've undone that rule. And that's why he's happy about it. But when you combine it with the fact that he's still alive, and then you go, oh, wait, they can walk around. I thought they weren't allowed to do that before the Bite of 87. Oh, my God. You know, and then you see the newspaper at the end and you go,
oh. Pickle Pepper says, Charlie died at night. Was it open at night? I think that based on Security Puppet, that could have taken place around, like, 8 p.m. and it's dark out. But that's only because I do not believe that Midnight Motorist follows on from Charlie's death. So for me, it's like, yeah, it's dark out. It's after sunset, 7 or 8. That's a time that a Chuck E. Cheese would still be open and there'd be kids there. But yeah, the kids are there at 11 and no one has eyes on Charlie, I think is odd.
Yes. Yeah, it's... See, I kind of, this is purely like a headcanon idea, but like the way I look at it is, you know, with Charlie83, she's either at a Fredbear's or a Freddy's, and she's there late because Henry works all day, and she's just at Freddy's all day, kind of similar to how Bite Victim kind of has to go to work, you know, during the day. And so that's why she's there late. Like, obviously, it's still open, but the security puppet is there because Henry's working all the time. So it looks after her when Henry's busy, and it's just trying to make sure that she doesn't get into trouble. So he designs that so that he can be at work and bring her with him without having to also always be taking care of her when she's there. It's like a babysitter, basically.
Yeah, and there's also other children there. Like, it's not
Oh
just
yeah, no, but that's what I
Charlie.
mean. Is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
no, but that's what I mean. Is like the building is open, yes, but the reason the security puppet is there is because he then can just like work and not, think about
Yep.
taking care of her the whole time and be worried about what she's doing.
And then the
He can
same
just
thing
sort of let
happens
her
to
be on her own.
Edwin. I should have been spending time
Yes.
with him. I let a robot raise my
Hmm.
child. So someone in chat said, fun fact, Fredbear's had a bar. That's not the first time I've heard that, but I have no idea where that idea comes from.
That comes from the Silver Eyes,
Oh.
where, as far as I remember, where Charlie goes to Fredbear's and observes that there are grooves in the wooden floor that seem to be the remnants of bar stools. And I think the actual implication is not that Fredbear's had a bar, but that it used to be a bar sometime between or before being Fredbear's, I think, is the implication.
You use bar stools to play arcade games.
I think they specifically call it out as being an old country bar. I think they
Okay.
say that
Okay.
like directly.
And then other people are saying Chuck E. Cheese sells beer. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could be. I don't see why it couldn't be. It seems to be a lot more kid friendly in FNAF 4, at least. By that stage, it's definitely just
Also,
like basically a Freddy's.
yeah, there's also no alcohol in Hurricane, Utah. So, like, how seriously are we supposed to take
There's
stuff
no
like that?
alcohol.
Because it's like Mormons and stuff. They just don't have alcohol there in like the
Oh.
real Hurricane.
Really?
Yeah, I think when people were trying to determine like where would Junior's be? Is Junior's a bar or is it a
Oh,
Freddy's
right.
location? There's like, well, there's 0 bars in the real Hurricane, Utah.
That's really
So
funny.
therefore Junior's is
Did
not a
Scott know
bar.
that?
And I'm like, well, you're taking Hurricane only from the Silver Eyes, and then you're saying that William lives within the town outskirts, and then you're applying real world 2025 bar existences to a game that's set in 1987. Like,
Yeah.
I don't find that particularly compelling.
No, and it's also like how aware of Hurricane's like alcohol tolerances, Scott. you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even super convinced that Junior's is a bar, but I don't think that's like a confirmed. It's not a bar. Yeah.
All right. Do you have any other topics, any last things to say on this particular debate? 83 versus 87?
Trying to think if there's anything else I've left. I'll check my notes. Do-do-do.
Is there anything that could happen in the movie that would change your mind?
If they had it so that this was okay, so if it was a case of when she says in the movie, "Oh, this was the original location," um, that what she meant was this used to be Fredbear's, then Freddy's opened, the franchise location as she calls it. The MCI happened, then it becomes FNAF 2, and that's when Charlie dies. That to me would be like oh, interesting. I don't think that would necessarily like confirmed, but if it's a case of just in the movie timeline, FNAF 2's location was the original one and there was no Fredbear's or Fredbear's was before that, I think that would be more like, okay, Charlie died first. But I'm already kind of a believer of that, the idea that FNAF 2 is a reopened Fredbear's, like the physical building was Fredbear. Which kind of ties into the whole bite idea, and all the ties between 4 and 2 would be because it's in the same physical building, so it's like the curse, god victim
Agony-isms, yeah.
Yeah, so if Charlie dies at the FNAF 2 location, which is a reopened friend, and she dies after the MCI, I will be like, okay, maybe I would really have to re-examine the stuff that I went through today, but I have already, and I can't think of any reason for it's mostly, I think, the like nail in the coffin stuff is Henry's speech, and I have not heard an argument for that which has been convincing to me to say like, oh yeah, I can pretty much disregard what he says in that game or in that speech.
Yeah, I personally I don't care what the movie says with all the changes it's already had. The movie could just come out and say like it's something crazy like Charlie is the one who killed Garrett actually like it could just be nonsense and I'd be like,
Yeah,
"Oh, well this says nothing about the movie at all or the games at all."
yeah, yeah, very true. Uh, Booty Skittles saying, oh, that's a good name. What do you think a wound first inflicted on me was? I think it was
Charlie.
Charlie's death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ace Ventura does have a super chat. Are we ever told there's a night guard before 87? I think it can be assumed that any business would have a night guard. And so I feel like we'd have to be told there isn't a night guard as opposed to have to be told that there is a night guard. I think the assumption
Yeah.
is that there is a night guard.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you don't think the week before is canon, then fair enough. But there is the whole thing of Ralph not having taken the job, the night guard position when Capellia was born. I know it's from that weird page, but there is he makes reference to night guards in the past. So yeah, I think you're right. You would have to specify there wasn't any then to assume that they only just started using them in FNAF because Charlie died.
Fazent says
Because by that argument,
Charlie.
they would. Sorry, go ahead.
Fazent says Charlie's Vanessa. Are you saying that the movie's version of the character Vanessa in the movie is actually Henry's daughter? Like, is that where you're going with that?
He's
I don't know
probably
what you
joking.
mean. Oh, okay.
Probably joking.
Yeah. Also, we're
I
not
think
gonna.
he's just saying like crazy stuff they could do.
Okay. Yeah, we're not going to discuss the leaks on my channel, but I am aware of them, so I do kind of try to dance around them. Oh, okay, that's good. I wish I I wish I wasn't. Oh yeah, okay, Fazent's clearing up. That's just a crazy thing they could do. Yeah. God, Charlie.
GiBi is very aware. Yeah, I have not heard or looked at any of the stuff from the leaks, so
Good.
I will be going in with fresh eyes.
Me and TD are cursed with knowledge.
Yeah, and TD slipped up one day and said one thing, and I was
no,
and he went, "Oh, sorry." So I know maybe one thing, but I kind of have already.
Yeah, and him and I have exact opposite takes on the leaks. I think the movie's going to be great because of them. He thinks it's going to suck because of them. So it could go 50-50. I'm excited.
Interesting. CC died before Charlie because there is no puppet toy. That is an interesting thing that the security puppet being completely absent from Fredbear good anti-Charlie first evidence.
But he's wearing the puppet shirt.
Yeah, well, so I have this. I suppose this would be a little, not to go into a whole new tangent, but just a little, button on it. I think there is an interpretation of FNAF 4 at the time, not now. I think now it is pretty definitively that William is the Fredbear plush. But I think that is likely to be a Scott Con, and that the original intention was that the puppet was Charlie was the Fredbear plush, and the reason the crying child looks like the puppet, the reason he's dressed like, is because both of them are mirrors of one another. He looks like what she becomes, and she looks like what he becomes. And I think there's evidence or an argument to be made that the idea was originally that she was the sister that went missing and was the empty girl's room, and it was sort of a Sammy Charlie situation, and that she was the one making the promise to put them back together, which is why in FNAF 3 he's the happiest day receiver.
Yes, and William would not be their father in this telling. By the time of in FNAF 4, Purple Guy is not the father of Foxy Bro and Crying Child and Girl.
Yeah, I don't think so. Or maybe he is, and he killed her for some reason. But probably not.
All right, well, that's all I have to say on this topic. All right, I'm just going to give you one more chance. Is there anything you'd like to yap about the Charlie death year?
No, I think I've said my piece. I think I've said
Okay.
enough.
Well, it's been great having you on. I might have you on in a future episode. I'm trying to get different people, but I'm eventually going to have to start doubling up. I definitely want to do a DCI thing. I'm going to have T-Dreads on at some point to do a God David argument, which does mean
Nice.
I'm going to have to find someone who doesn't believe in God David, which is, as
Hmm.
far as I'm aware of, is only Tom. So if anyone knows how I can get Tom on the show, let me know. 'Cause I might just have to DM him and be like, "Hey, do you want to come
You can
on
probably
to my
you can hit up
audience?"
Rytoast. You can hit up Hyperdroid. They all met him now. So
Yeah. Do you want to
talk to
come into
them.
my little show and say to the camera that you believe that the first 7 games are just in-universe games?
Well, does he believe that, or does he believe basically God David, but it's Greg Bot?
It's based on their video. He either believes Gregbot or games fiction. He might change his mind.
Yeah.
He specifically said that he did not watch any other FNAF theories until their project was done. So he did not know God David. He did
Right.
not know
Okay.
Fate Fiona. He's never seen any of our videos. Now he will have.
Yeah.
So it's possible that he's like, I came up with my 2 theories, and then he watched God David, and he's like, oh, that was obviously the answer. I can't believe that, I didn't think of that. So I don't know what he currently believes. But I would love
Hmm.
for him to defend either of those positions.
Yeah. That's fair. Uh,
Seeker's asking, am I going to get Draz for Charlie83? I don't even know what Charlie82 is.
I think Charlie83 is just that in FNAF 4 in the source code there was an 82, and I think that again, like based on the original idea, that might have saved him happen in 82, and then the game happens in 83, and then the bite happens in 87 because of God Victim. But I it would basically be what we're talking about here, but just plus that. I think so. Maybe Draz and I had a conversation recently, like post stream, where he divulged his belief about BV fifth and
The
MCI
worst
83.
theory?
Oh my lord, there were some takes. And listen, I really like Draz. He's a great guy. He did stuff for my April Fool's video, but there were takeaways from that discussion where I was like, "Oh my, what?" I couldn't wrap my head around it. But it would definitely be an interesting discussion, especially for one of these. It's not a debate where you're like trying to debunk it, where you just have a full discussion about the evidence behind it, because he had a strong belief in that. So that might be another a good one to get him on for.
But ultimately, it's all the same 83 evidence, just with one extra. Like, actually, it's 82. Is that what it is?
Sorry, no, sorry, not Charlie83.
Oh, BV fifth.
I'm talking about BV fifth and MCI 83.
He might be the only BV fifth believer that still exists.
Yeah,
That's one.
It's So BV fifth might be there. MCI 83. He's got a lot about MCI 83. In fairness, if you don't look at the other media, then 83 is a perfectly acceptable good date. I guess dual process are BV fifth, but they're not in the same way. He thinks he was literally the 5th MCI victim and was also killed during the bite.
Yes. I don't even if the MCI ends up not being in 85, I'd be totally cool with that. We just sort of all assume 85 because we assume Charlie first, because we assume it must be before FNAF 2, and because that's what it is in all the books. But if someone can convince me it's not 85, that's totally fine. I'm very, very open to that.
If it was 83, I still think Charlie died first.
Yes.
I still think she would die before them, so then Charlie 82.
Yep. Or Charlie Spring 83, MCI Summer 83, like...
Oh, yeah.
dual process
making it
is here. Yo, I heard we're talking about BB Fifth. Maybe we can do another BB Fifth stream at some time. But I believe that this wraps up Charlie 83. So Unwithered, I'm happy that you've been here. We've been yapping for what, 2 hours, 3 hours? How long's it been?
Yes.
I've lost track of all time.
Near 3.
Almost
near
3
hours.
I told you right
Crazy.
before it started. I'm like, this could be about an hour. It's totally fine. Turns out that me and you
No,
just love
we went
yapping.
on a save them. We went on a save them tangent for like an hour, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for having me on. I had a great time.
Yep, and thanks everyone for being here. Thank you all for keeping it respectful. If you do have any ideas that you'd want me to talk to people about for future episodes, obviously, as I've just said, maybe we can throw in a BV Fifth one now. But God David's going to be a future one. So if you guys have any specific theories you'd love to see people discuss, and if you have any theorists you'd like to see on, let me know in the comments. And we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye Epic, bye Mad Dog, bye Lay, bye Navy, bye Sandwich.
Bye, people.